Pirate's Most Powerful Villain, Chapter 421-440. Chapter 0421 Demon Binding. I can sense that there is someone on the island, it's Kaido's breath. Chinyong whispered to himself, the perception radiated out, and he found Kaido's position. After pondering for a moment, he turned around and woke Nini up. Lord Chin Emperor. Sorry, I fell asleep. Come on, we've landed in Rahudal and let the treasure rat come out. Hearing this, Nini took out a stuffed toy from her pocket, and after gently stroking it, the toy suddenly became alive, as if it had life. After the squeaking sound, the treasure-hunting mouse jumped out of Nini's palm. It seemed to have found something and ran in one direction. That direction is exactly where Kaido is. Seeing this, Chinyang's eyes flashed and he immediately followed. Going all the way, Chinyang saw the ancient ruins. Most of the ruined buildings were buried under the soil, and only part of the top was exposed to the surface. This kind of scene is very frequent, and the deeper you go, the more ruins you see. After walking for about 10 minutes, Chinyang followed the treasure hunter through a jungle, and finally saw a brand new scene. It was an altar with 5 stone pillars standing, most of which were buried underground, and the exposed part was also covered with moss. And in the center of the altar, Kaido was looking at something. Suddenly, his complexion changed, suddenly turned around, and at a glance, his pupils shrank. Emperor Chin. After a brief surprise, he regained his calm and said, I knew you would come, but I didn't expect it so soon. He. Chinyang stepped closer, like a leisurely stroll. I was a little surprised when I heard that your fleet was wiped out. Vomit, Kaido smiled but said, this place is weird, it's better not to have any conflicts between us. Then see what information you can tell me. Chinyang looked at the 5 stone pillars and said, what is this? Do you know? He just asked casually, not expecting Kaido to understand. However, Kaido's answer made him raise his eyebrows. This is the devil fruit-making altar. Kaido snorted and said, you must also know that this island is the ruins of the ancient country 800 years ago. Although it is only a small part, it is also the core area. Here, they are used to restrain the demons. Altar. I'll tell you straight. Kaido didn't mean to hide, it's a secret about devil fruits. He briefly explained. To put it simply, the essence of a devil fruit is that a devil leans over the fruit, and the moment he eats the fruit, the devil will move from the fruit to the human body, so the ability person is created. Because of this characteristic, the same person cannot eat 2 fruits. Because the 2 demons in the body will fight and die. This kind of common sense doesn't need you to explain it, it's the point. Chinyang spoke calmly. Shin-J. On the other side, Kaido, Isho, said, then let's talk about the main point. This altar that restrains the devil is actually to force the devil out of the fruit, and then kill the opponent, completely gaining the power of the devil. In contrast, eating a devil fruit can only be regarded as borrowing the power of the devil, so after the death of the host, the devil will leave and find a new fruit to live in. But restraining the demon is different. This is to completely kill the demon and plunder the opponent's power. Once the capable person dies, this fruit will not be born again. So that's the case, killing the devil fruit and gaining the power of the opponent. What's the difference between the ordinary ability person? Chinyang nodded, temporarily believing it for 3 points. It's very simple, the level of the ability person is different. Kaido's eyes flickered, and he said solemnly, you know the awakening of those who are capable. This is something that can only be achieved through years of practice, but demon restraints are not required, and they can be awakened the moment they acquire their abilities. Pause, he sneered again, since you landed on this island, you should have heard that kind of singing. This is the ability of the demon restraint, who can keep his voice of nature forever in the world, even if the past ate for 100 years, the ability has not faded in the slightest. One of the abilities of the Tiana fruit is the voice of Tiana. Incorporate your own voice into nature, and turn it into the sound of wind, water, birds, and more. This power will not disappear with the death of the capable person. Unfortunately, this technology has been lost, and the world government has not obtained it. Kaido seemed to be somewhat mocking. No matter how powerful an empire is, it will die one day. It's really sad. Quote. Chin-Yong ignored this feeling. He was very interested in the words, devil restraint. Obviously, in the ancient country, the understanding and utilization of devil fruits was far higher than that of today. Emperor Qin, if you want to find the big secret treasure, I don't think you need to work hard. Suddenly, Kaido said again, I landed on this island 10 days ago, to solve the mystery of singing. It took 3 days, and the next week, I almost searched this place, but I couldn't find any big secret treasure. Roger, this bastard is very likely to fool people. He didn't fool anyone. Chin-Yong thought to himself. The giant tortoise under the sea obviously knew Roger, and had an agreement with Roger, waiting for the person who made the appointment. It is estimated that the big secret treasure is on the body of the giant tortoise. Of course, Chin-Yong is not interested in the big secret treasure. He is here to find the origin of the world. Thinking of this, Chin-Yong immediately asked, by the way, how do you know about demon restraints? Big Mom told me. Kaido didn't even think about it, and immediately replied, she landed 1 step ahead of me. Where is she? It's dead. Kaido haha Isho said, no, maybe he didn't die. Anyway, he was seriously injured and escaped into the dream world. What did you do? I just took it seriously. It was her own problem. She was seriously injured when she encountered the storm. Kaido shook his head with a dull look on his face. The so-called Lahoodle is such a ruin. There is nothing here, except for listening to a song and reading a story. There is nothing. Hearing this, Chin-Yong smiled. Hee, the eyes of mortals. What are you laughing at? Kaido frowned. What did you find? Who knows? Chin-Yong was too lazy to answer. He looked at the treasure-hunting mouse. The little mouse had already run to the center of the altar and made a series of squeaks. Is that right here? Fantastic. Chin-Yong asked in his heart. It should be. Fantasy Jean replied in an uncertain tone. Scanning can lock the mysterious power, but the origin of the world cannot be found exactly, and can only be vaguely sensed. Chin-Yong also felt this way. This ruined altar had a strange power. To be precise, under the altar. Kaido, I advise you, it's better to stay a little farther away. Vector manipulation. Chin-Yong muttered in a low voice, and at the same time, he raised his leg suddenly and stepped on it. Boom. The ground shook violently, cracks spread from the foothold, and then a deep ravine spread from Chin-Yang's feet toward the altar. Ka. The earth seemed to be torn apart by a pair of invisible hands, and the entire deeply buried altar was shattered by Chin-Yang's foot. What are you going to do? Kaido looked sideways and ran away immediately. And as soon as his voice fell, a gust of wind swept out under the torn earth. Immediately afterwards, the sea outside Lahoodle, above the ocean, set off a huge wave. The giant tortoise under the deep sea seemed to be provoked. It moved its body and was about to surface. Come on. Chin-Yang's eyes narrowed, and he immediately grabbed Nini and flew into the air. Chapter 0422 _ The Origin of the World. The first update I thought about it, compressed it a little, and changed it to 5 or 6 pictures to end the world. By the way, the previous heavenly kings, demon bindings, etc., are all my personal conjectures, including the ancient kingdom, Lahoodle, and so on. Anyway, when the comics are drawn here, it will be several years later, 2333. Come on. Chin-Yang's eyes narrowed, and he immediately grabbed Nini and fled away. Lord Chin Emperor, Nini said in surprise, that's it. An old turtle. Chin-Yang created a spiritual platform in the air, and then dropped Nini. His kick just now was enough to shatter the island, but it only shattered the area around the altar. The power penetrated the earth and finally bombarded the back of the tortoise, awakening and angering the 1,000-year-old giant tortoise. It's not that Chin-Yang intends to attack it, it's just that it's just below the island and will inevitably suffer the impact. At this moment, under the pane, the giant tortoise sleeping in the deep sea moved, and immediately set off a huge wave. Because of its huge body, it only moved slightly, and it also exerted a terrifying influence on the sea surface. Around the island, there were hundreds of pirate ships, and everyone was shocked. A 100-meter-high wave was set off from a distance and struck mightily. Damn it! Is the storm coming again? Run! That kind of strong wind and waves, the ship will be torn in an instant. Many New World pirates lost their lives in the storm, and no one dared to rely on the big one. When they saw the waves hit, a few 863 people were ready to turn the bow and sail away from this sea area. Idiot, you can't escape with your back to the waves. It's better to face it head-on. Others were dismissive of this escape. However, just when everyone was moving, a series of bubbles appeared under the sea, and in the sound of puff-puff, one after another bubble burst. Suddenly, at a certain moment, the entire sea began to swell, as if a huge water polo was swollen, and a dozen ships were lifted up. Immediately afterwards, the huge blister burst suddenly. Boom! With a loud bang, more than a dozen ships were destroyed and shattered. And such huge bubbles are constantly overflowing from the bottom of the sea, densely packed, covering the entire surrounding sea area. What? Ben Beckman was stunned. Any underwater creature breathing out. It's it. The redhead lost all sleep, and said solemnly, who angered him? He heard a loud noise from the island just now. It seems that someone has landed. Let's go too. Boss, what about the singing? Asked Big Fatty Lackey. Also, the island looks like it's going to be submerged. Those who are capable stay, and the others follow me to the island. The redhead said in a deep voice, as for the sound of nature, just relax and listen to it carefully. Go. Said, the red hare took the first step, jumped out of the boat, and rushed towards the island quickly against the sea. Meanwhile, over the island, Chinyong stared at the broken altar and gazed down from the ravine, but still didn't see anything strange. He frowned slightly and said inwardly, is there something missing? It seems that the origin of the world is indeed under the island. Just thinking about it, Kaido's expression changed greatly. The waves are going to submerge the island. 10 days ago, he was washed up on Lahoodle like this, and he didn't expect to encounter it again today. Emperor Qin, help. Thinking of this, he immediately shouted at Chinyong. The last time I survived, it was luck. This time I was washed away, and the ghost knew where I would be washed away. Hearing this, Chinyong raised his eyebrows and said playfully, help you, why? Could I just told you what I knew. Kaido was annoyed, ready to bleed, 5 fruits. 10. Chinyong calmly quoted. I see, 10. Kaido was irritated, he didn't have 10 fruits, but he agreed first and then went to grab it. I just appreciate how cheerful you are. Chinyong chuckled lightly and immediately started. 10 fruits are not many for him now, no matter how small a mosquito is, it is still meat, and it is easy to do anyway. Universal pull. Thinking of this, Chinyang's eyes narrowed, and suddenly, his eyes turned into words of reincarnation. At the same time, his right hand stretched out and grabbed Kaido. The next moment, a powerful adsorption force immediately locked Kaido and grabbed him from the island. The moment Kaido flew away from the island, a huge wave crashed down, almost drowning the entire island in an instant. Hundreds of millions of tons of seawater represent the supreme power of nature. And in the chaos, Chinyang's face was startled by Vivi. He threw the captured Kaido directly onto the spiritual platform, and then stared at the altar submerged by the sea. That place, that small piece of seawater, is exuding a unique power. This kind of power cannot be felt by ordinary people, but Chinyang can. That's a much stronger reaction than devil fruit. The origin of the world. Sure enough, it's right here, but it needs seawater contact to detect it. Chinyang, Vivi Isho, immediately swooped down and slammed into the turbulent ocean. Seeing this, Kaido was stunned. This guy, what did you find? Lord Qin Emperor, Nini shouted subconsciously. HMPH, don't worry, how could something happen to this guy? Kaido looked cold and stared down. Not to mention the reactions of others and the turmoil of the pirates, Qin returned to the island under the sea. On Lahudre Island, which was submerged by seawater, within the ravine of the altar, Qin saw colorful and different shapes ocean fish. All blue. Qin was surprised in his heart. Along with the waves, there are countless kinds of wonderful fish. The legendary blue ocean is a mysterious sea with all the marine ingredients in the east, south, west, north, and four seas. No, not from here, they rushed from the direction of the Red Earth continent. Immediately, Qin perception radiated out, and in an instant, it extended tens of thousands of meters in the direction of the Red Earth continent. At this distance, Qin saw all kinds of fish, including South Blue, North Blue, East Blue, and West Blue. The marine creatures that live in the rest of the world's seas exist in the ocean ahead. It's really surprising. It should be close to the Red Soil continent, that is, the sea area after the destination island. Moving forward, it is the upside-down mountain, the entrance to the Great Route. However, Qin was only surprised. The existence of the blue ocean was not worth caring about for him. Compared to this, Qin immediately rushed into the gully of the altar. The moment he entered, a strange force enveloped him. Without waiting for him to ask, Fantasy Jean took the initiative to say, "It's the origin of the world." "No, it's just a part of it, it should have drifted over. Absorb it, and illusory God can reach 6 stars. 6 star, quote. Qin was shocked, and suddenly laughed, "Very good." The next moment, he closed his eyes and began to perceive the special forces around him. This small piece of ocean suddenly began to emit bright light, and the 5 altar stone pillars seemed to be moved. A power more essential than the mysterious power carried by the devil fruit poured into Qin body, filling the cells of his body. With the evolution at the genetic level, the fantasy world has also begun to expand, and everything is evolving towards a higher dimension. At this moment, a large vortex appeared in Qin position. Everyone can clearly see that the huge vortex covers this sea area. What the hell, what happened? Chapter 0423_6 star Phantom God. In the end, what happened? And a huge whirlpool was born. The arm of the whirlpool is extremely wide, and the entire seawater gradually emits a blue light, which complements the color of the ocean itself, making it very beautiful. What's under the water? The bubble just now is also, what huge creature exists? In the center of the vortex, is there a figure? In an instant, countless observation Haki probed towards the whirlpool and the sea. Haki swept one after another, but could not perceive the breath of any creature, let alone humans, or some kind of huge marine creature, even ordinary fish. It was difficult to perceive clearly. Especially at the center of the whirlpool, where even observation Haki couldn't detect it, as if that area had been separated from this world. This is... The red-haired man who had not yet had time to land on the island stared at the front with wide eyes. He was immersed in the sea water, pulled by the whirlpool, and gradually approached the center. Others may not be able to perceive it, but he can see it with the naked eye because he is so close. In the center of the whirlpool, that is Rahudal Island, to be precise, someone on the island. Emperor Qin. The redhead's expression froze for a while. Dreams are indeed dreams, no matter where they go, they can make big moves. This kind of action that involves the entire sea area, even the red hair can't understand what happened. This kind of vision must have something to do with him. What is he doing? The red hair narrowed his eyes, his body resisted the pull of the vortex, maintaining a certain balance. He is glowing. People are shining. Emperor Qin was bathed in the ocean, and his body exuded a unique faint blue radiance, which dipped the sea surface with a layer of radiance. These lights, like liquid, circulated around Emperor Qin's body, flowing from the front chest to his feet, turning around again, and returning to the top of his head from the back. Every time the brilliance flows, it strengthens Qin Yang's genes and allows him to enter a higher level. Just like the importance of 5-star to the general illusion, the 6-star is also a qualitative change to the main body illusion. This is no longer an evolution at the genetic level of the body, but a jump in the level of the soul. From the human soul, gradually transformed into a God-level soul. If there is someone who can see the soul, then at this moment, the other party can see that Qin Yang's soul has turned into golden color, and the golden light is like substance. At the same time, in Qin Yang's consciousness, the information about the ontology changed. 0 change. Illusory God, Qin Yang. Shan_pi. Star rating. I ability, phantom control. Ability 2, delusional obliteration. Ability 3, illusion embodiment. Pi. Ability 4, illusion comes. Ability 5, illusory world creation. Ability 6, illusory fusion. Illusory fusion. Qin Yang slowly opened his eyes, and as he opened his eyes, the blue light around his body began to fade away, and the maelstrom also began to dissipate. Sure enough, although it is only a part of the origin of the world, it is enough to raise the main body to a 6-star level. Qin Yang nodded with satisfaction, and at the same time asked in his heart, Huan, what does the 6th ability mean? Literally, fantasy Jean seemed extremely weak and exhausted. This kind of situation has happened before. Every time the fantasy god upgrades, the star rating and the fusion degree between the fantasy Jean and him is enhanced, it will be like this. But this time it was more obvious. Fusion, with what? Of course it is the illusion world and other worlds, such as the current pirate world. Next, fantasy Jean will briefly describe the general effect. To put it simply, the specific ability of the illusion world fusion is that the illusion world devours other worlds and turns that world into a subordinate world of the illusion world. Just like people, the world needs growth and nourishment. The fantasy world integrates the pirate world into its own system, and the other party can continuously provide nutrients for its own growth. So, the more worlds you merge, the stronger the fantasy world, and the stronger the fantasy world, the safer it is. Fantasy Jean said, your power is invincible in the pirate world, but in other fantasy worlds, it's nothing at all. Even in the world of myths, the world of novels, there are top-level existences that can shatter a world. Pause, he added. Besides, the powerful illusion world can be directly used to suppress a world. Just like two people colliding head-on, the stronger one will win. Of course, the current illusion world is just a baby. It's not as good as pirate world. It turns out that it is indeed a 6-star ability, beyond imagination. Qin Yang nodded clearly. Now I have absorbed the origin of the pirate world, that is to say, I can already merge with it. Yes, integrating the world of pirates is equivalent to having a channel between the fantasy world and this world. Even if you go to another world in the future, you can come back here with a single thought. After speaking, Fantasy Jean fell into a deep sleep and disappeared completely. Qin Yang tried to shout, but did not respond. It's not too late, I'll try to start devouring fusion. If the world of pirates is merged, in the future, the world of pirates and the fantasy world will be equivalent to the relationship between the human world and the fairy world in ordinary fairy tales, and there will be subordinates. Even in order to be able to come back at any time in the future, Qin Yang has to integrate the world of pirates. Thinking of this, his eyes condensed, and suddenly, his eyes turned into the eyes of reincarnation. Almighty push. With a single thought, the repulsive force was born, and the sea water was expelled in an instant. Boom. The huge amount of sea water was divided, and Qin Yang slowly floated and flew into the sky. Above the sea, many pirates only saw that the maelstrom that gradually stopped, suddenly burst open, and a figure seemed to be a god, slowly flying up. Qin Emperor. Not only Heilong is here, but even Emperor Qin is here. Is it Emperor Qin who drowned Lahoodle just now? Everyone's color changed, and they all felt helpless. Before they landed on the island and found the great treasure, Lahoodle was submerged. I saw Qin Yang, who flew high into the sky, standing in the sky, watching the many pirates below. After a brief glance, Qin Yang was too lazy to answer. He has absorbed the source, and the general purpose has been achieved. The next step is to integrate the world and go to the new world. However, before leaving, Qin Yang felt that it would be better to keep a legend. Every one of the pirates, this emperor is, Qin. He spoke loudly, and his voice spread in all directions. I tell you today that there is a more beautiful fantasy world on top of this world. The fantasy world is heaven, ideal land, and utopia. Only powerful people can break through the dimension, the limit of the world, into the illusion. And now, I will break the passage between the two worlds. The illusion is coming. As soon as the voice fell, above the sky, an illusory world like a mirage suddenly descended. Chapter 0424 I am a phantom. The third update someone asked about the group number, then announce it again, the second group, 230,131,998, there are still 5 positions, almost full. Close black lens bracket. Illusory world is coming. Boom. Above the sea, the whole sky is shaking, and the roar is resounding, as if some kind of huge force is breaking the wall of the world, and it will tear a complete world apart. Countless lines of sight seem to be sluggish, staring blankly at the mutated sky. A long and narrow gap suddenly appeared. Then, as if the flames were burning through the border, the seam of the sky slowly opened, and behind it was another illusory and beautiful world. The bright sun shines, an island in the ocean is full of vitality, birds hovering in the sky, animals playing on the grass, fish cruising in the stream, and elk running on and off. That illusory world reflects peace, tranquility and beauty. Countless people stared blankly. This is another world, on the other side of the sky, leading to another world. Is it the kingdom of God? Heaven. Illusionary world. What is an illusionary world? A world in fantasy, all the good places in the world. The murmuring continued. Everyone was stunned. This is another, completely different world. Among the devil fruit ability users, there are some special ability people, who have worlds such as Dream World, Mirror World, Virtual World, etc. But this kind of world is just a different space, which is different from the real big world. In comparison, it is not worth mentioning at all. But in front of him, the fantasy world reflected in the sky is different. It is a real big world, and it is difficult to see the end at a glance. Just now Emperor Qin said that powerful people can enter that world. Suddenly remembering what Qin Yang said, someone suddenly became excited. That is a world, in comparison, the big secret treasures are not as good. Redhead, Kaido, other big pirates, Hawkeye, Hancock, Bartholomew Bear, Crocodile hidden in a certain ship, Hapo Navy Chinjiao and so on. Familiar, unfamiliar, well-known, unknown, old, young, ruthless and evil, refined and egoistic, all the witnesses are looking up at the illusion world, looking up at the illusion world. Qin Yang. This is the realm of illusion, the realm of all fantasies, wishes, and beautiful manifestations. Qin Yang's face was calm, and his voice was as usual, present treasures to our dreams before we can enter. As he spoke, Qin Yang suddenly stretched out his hand, clenched his palm into a fist, and bombarded the surrounding space. Boom! After a dull drum beating sound, where the punch landed, the space shattered inch by inch. Or, the strength is so powerful that it shatters the vacuum and opens up the walls of the two worlds. In the illusion world, there are passages through thousands of worlds, and there are many worlds like this world, and there are countless. What you long for, wealth, power, everything you want, you can get it. Quote. Of course, this is just to fool others. Qin Yang himself has not yet opened the second world, how could he let these people enter? That said, it is nothing more than wanting these people to present treasures. However, when he said so, most of the people below believed it. After all, it came from the mouth of Emperor Qin, and subconsciously, he would believe it for 7 or 8 points, especially the illusion of the illusion in the sky was still revealed, which added a bit of credibility. The passage of thousands of worlds. Immediately, many people sprouted ambitions and their eyes were bright. He he he. Qin Yang chuckled twice, and then stopped talking. Immediately, his thoughts moved, and the fusion of the illusion world began. Immediately, the expansion rate of the gap in the sky accelerated, and the boundary of the gap was like a burning flame. The entire sky of the pirate world is like a piece of white paper, which is slowly burned by the flame. Every inch of the pirate world is swallowed up by 1 point. When the sky of the whole world is burned to the ground, the swallowing will be completed. At the current speed, at least a month too long, speed it up for me. Qin Yang glanced at the progress of devouring, and was about to expand his power to the limit. It's a bit dangerous to do this. When he started to swallow, he was unable to move or defend. If someone attacked him at this time, it might really hurt him. But Qin Yang didn't wait for a month, the sooner he swallowed, the better. In an instant, the burning speed of the seam of the sky increased 10 times, and then in just a short time, it reached 100 times. Whoosh! The sky shrouded in the heads of all the pirates was burned again in just a few minutes. And the boundary of the seam of the sky is rapidly expanding in all directions at a lightning speed. From Rahudal, go north, south, west, east, all at the same time. If someone can look down on the entire pirate planet at an altitude of tens of thousands of meters at this moment, they will be shocked to discover. At the end of the great route, a small flame was born. This tiny flame, in the form of a spark, would devour the entire planet. The first to be covered, the windless belt, followed by East Blue and North Blue. Loga Town, Goa Kingdom, Syrup Village, Sea Restaurant Baladi, Kokoyasi Village. Followed by, Upside Down Mountain Twin Cape, Whiskey Peak, Little Garden, Drum Island, Alabasta Kingdom of Santin Island, Jaya Island Mock Town, Long Ring Long Land, Seven Waters, Ennie's Lobby, Terrifying Big 3-1 Corner Sea Area. Eventually, the flames of the burning sky covered the Sabayati Archipelago, the shrine of the New Order. At the same time, the flames in the other direction also burned through the sky over the original holy place Mariajoy. The flames from all directions finally meet at the top of the Red Earth continent. The entire swallowing process lasted for half an hour. When the fantasy world is completely swallowed, the entire pirate world, no matter where you are, the sight you see when you look up is the light and shadow of another world. All over the world, hundreds of millions of people, whether it is day or night, dusk or early morning, all walk to the open space and look up at the sky. This is like a miraculous scene, shocking the soul. At this moment, Qin 0.9 Yang's complexion was pale, and Rao used the power of the 6-star phantom god to maintain the swallowing for half an hour, and he was doing his best, and he couldn't help feeling a burst of collapse. However, the results were gratifying. The fantasy world finally swallowed the pirate world. From now on, the pirate world will become a subordinate world of the fantasy world and become one of Qin Yang's personal collections, bringing a trace of vitality to the empty fantasy world. Thinking of this, Qin Yang took a deep breath and spread the last power to the world through the sky of the illusion world. I am Emperor Qin, and from today onwards, I will become the master of this world. My name will last forever and live with this world. I am the Phantom God, the Lord of Dreams, like a dream, like a phantom, everywhere, everywhere, all the heavens and the world, all in the mind. In just 2 sentences, through the sky of the illusion world, it spread throughout the world and into the ears of hundreds of millions of people. Chapter 0425 Leave the Pirate World. The first update / the second group has been upgraded, and there are 1500 positions. The group number is in the previous chapter and can be added. By the way, Pirate is over today, and it is estimated that the next chapter will open a new world. Close black lens bracket. It's been half a month since Rahudal's vision. When the fantasy world devoured the pirate world and turned it into a lower world of its own, there was an unbreakable connection between the two worlds. Every minute and every second, the pirate world will provide energy to replenish the illusion and make it grow. It can be said that Qin Yang is now the master of the illusion world and the master of all the lower realms, although there is currently only one lower realm. But after becoming the master of the pirate world, Qin Yang also gained unimaginable benefits. First of all, with a single thought, he can appear in any corner of the pirate world, which is much more powerful than the Shadow Demon's space jump. It doesn't need positioning, just think, you can do it. At once, just like the owner of the house shouting a sentence in his own house, so that the residents in the house can hear it clearly. To put it more directly, even if Qin Yang wants to destroy the world, he can do it. No, destroying the world is a big exaggeration. After all, the world of pirates is a complete fantasy world. It is difficult to destroy, but there is no problem in destroying all human beings. Not to mention a strong man like the Four Emperors, who basically raised his finger and mobilized the power of the entire world to suppress him, and could easily be crushed to death. This is like the world of Shenxia, or the way of heaven in the prehistoric world. After swallowing up part of the origin of the world, Qin Yang is the way of heaven and God alive in this world. This world has no secrets to me anymore, so let the United Nations slowly collect mysterious powers. Sanctuary of the New Order, Sabayati Archipelago, Area 7, in the newly constructed United Nations building. In a large conference room on the top floor, Qin Yang sat on the main seat of the conference table. Him are all the Dream members, even Sengoku, Robin, Doflamingo, Whitebeard, Hancock and other indigenous members, all participated in this meeting. When everyone arrived, the Shadow Demon said loudly, "Everyone, I have called everyone here today to announce something." "What's the matter?" Hancock asked. Qin Yang didn't want her to join, but after thinking about it, it doesn't matter if there is one more or one less. Fortunately, he joined her and became a reserve member. And Hancock was an emperor before, and he must have no problem managing a huge United Nations. Hearing this, the other Aboriginal members also looked at Shenying Yao curiously. Seeing this, the Shadow Demon shook his head and turned his attention to the deputy captain. "Dream gentlemen, this world has been completely controlled by me." Aizen Vivi Isho, drinking black tea, said, "Next, I will go to the next world." Phew. What? Doflamingo was startled, and then his eyes flashed with excitement. It has been known earlier that Dream can go to the heavens and the world, but Doflamingo has never had a chance. In addition to his low status and not being a core member, on the other hand, he is busy running errands. Now that he finally had a chance, he immediately said, "What kind of world is Aizen-sama? Can you take me there?" "Ordinary full members, reserve members, stay here and manage the United Nations." Aizen smiled gently. "You guys are too young, you will be in charge of this world for a while, and when you are promoted to core members, you will be eligible to go to other worlds." "I see." Doflamingo nodded helplessly. He is the first person to follow the dream, and he has made the most contributions. According to this rhythm, he will definitely be promoted faster than others. Doflamingo, Aizen added, "The United Nations manages the world only secondary, the main purpose is to collect devil fruits, or mysterious power, things that contain mysterious power, places, etc." "Yes, Aizen-sama." At this time, Qin Yang said calmly, "Robin, how many fruits are still in existence?" Reporting to Lord Qin, there are still 150 devil fruits and 100 artificial zone devil fruits, and one artificial zone fruit can be produced every 2 days. Hearing this, Qin Yang secretly calculated for a moment, and finally shook his head. "It seems like a lot, but in fact there is not much at all. Adding it up, I am afraid that only one phantom can be upgraded to 5-star. Sure enough, you still have to go to other worlds to find new mysterious powers. However, now that the Phantom God has reached a 6-star level, I don't know how to evolve and improve in the future. 6-star is definitely not the limit, although Qin Yang's combat power is already very strong." Thinking of this, deep in Qin Yang's heart, the voice of Fantasy Jean suddenly sounded. 6 stars is just the beginning. Huan, are you awake? Qin raised his eyebrows and spoke with him calmly. Yes. Fantasy Jean returned to the usual way of communicating without emotional fluctuations. The 6-star Phantom God is not the limit, the power of the Phantom Master is endless, and he grows with the enhancement of the Phantom. In the turbulence of time and space, there are countless fantasy worlds, and the worlds evolved from any novels, movies, games, scripts, myths, TV, animation, etc., all exist within them. The fantasy world is the ultimate form of all fantasy worlds. Of course, the current illusion world is just a young baby, and needs to devour more worlds to grow. What it is like, you will understand when you enter the new world, absorb mysterious power, and start a new transformation. I see. Now that everything in the pirate world has been arranged, and the matter is over, you can let the time and space fish do it. Qin understood. The time-space fish stayed outside the 8-ball world and the papaya world for so long, and the observation during this time did indeed find a way to invade. Thinking of this, Qin got up and said, "Everyone, I will bring the core members and enter the 243 other world, and the pirate world will be hosted by you. If there is a problem, you can read my name, and then I will let the clone come." Saying that, he swept across the crowd, then waved his hand and disappeared. Goodbye then. With his words, Aizen, Ludaoban, Shadow Demon, Lich King, Night King, Hero King, Azir, etc., more than a dozen core members, all turned into a streamer and disappeared with Qin. The last to go is Accelerator. He looked at the 5 robins and laughed loudly. As a special envoy, I'm leaving too, a few. I hope that one day, I can meet you in the fantasy world and work hard to become a core member. Bye. After finishing speaking, under the gaze of the 5 people, Accelerator turned into a white light, poofed, and dispersed. It really came and went without a trace. Whitebeard laughed. Gulala, another world. Sengoku, what do you think? Hearing this, Sengoku's face was flat, as if he was remembering. Thinking about it now, from the beginning of the dream, their purpose was very clear. If I could have known this at that time, maybe there would have been a way to deal with it. Unfortunately, I am now one of them. He couldn't help shaking his head, even the world government was gone, of course he had no other way, just sighed. Another world. If there is a chance, I would also like to see it. At the same time, time and space are turbulent. Qin controlled the space-time fish and slammed into the papaya world. Volume 2 Grim Reaper. Chapter 0426-New World, Grim Reaper. Second update New World, New Beginning. The collision of real and fake blue dye, new transformations, will appear one by one. So, like some flowers, an exceptional 1 million. Now it is 947,000, which is more than 50,000. Close black lens bracket. The turbulent flow of time and space does not record the year, and there is no concept of time and space. In this chaos, there are 2 worlds floating quietly. One of them is like 8 glass balls, intertwined and connected in a circle. Qin temporarily named it 8-ball world. The other one, like papaya, emits a gleaming light. The deeper you look, the more orange-yellow you look, the field of vision will be filled with orange. This is the papaya world. The time-space fish stayed here for a long time, and finally found a way to invade. The 8-ball world is temporarily inaccessible. Forcibly intruding, it may be in great danger. Therefore, Qin chose papaya world. The way to invade is also very simple. The time and space fish have an ability called Long River of Time. As long as the Long River of Time is extended into the papaya world, the space-time fish will go directly down the Long River. This is the safest, but it is easy to mess up the time. However, when the time is messed up, Qin doesn't care at all. Thinking of this, Qin immediately controlled the space-time fish and activated his abilities. Long time. Swish. In the turbulent flow of time and space, a long river of time suddenly appeared, which turned the law of disorder into order and formed a long silver river. The long river was born out of sight, flowing past the space-time fish, and quickly spreading towards the papaya world. Unlike the 8-ball world, which has a strong repulsion ability, the papaya world's repulsion is much weaker. Time Cheng has successfully passed through the world's barriers and entered a patch of orange. It's now. Qin Yang secretly said in his heart that it will take a long time to develop in such a place, it cannot last long, and it must be done as soon as possible. Immediately, the space-time fish rushed into the long river of time and entered the target world along the flow of time. This is a modern city with high-rise buildings and bright lights. At night, the whole city is particularly lively. Office workers who have been busy all day begin their nightlife. And because of the occlusion of the night, most people failed to notice that a long silver river suddenly appeared in the sky above the city. The long river overlaps with the starry sky at night, and no one can see it except for a few peculiar people. At this moment, in a corner of the city, a young girl looked up at the night sky and muttered in a dazed tone. "This is what?" The girl has jet black hair and holds a great sword. She wears loose clothing and her body is pitch black, like a group of crotch. After staring for several minutes, the girl jumped up and jumped over a street lamp. What came out? The girl narrowed her eyes, barely able to catch a glimpse. From the long silver river, a black shadow of a fish drilled out. And with the appearance of the shadow, the long river gradually disappeared, slowly disappearing. Must see it. Locking the direction where the shadow was fleeing, the girl immediately chased after him. At the same time, the time-space fish shook his head and staggered down toward a big river in the city. With a thud, it fell into the river. I'm so dizzy. How long did it take to travel? Sure enough, it was the first time to invade another world, and I wasn't proficient. Qin Yang manipulated the space-time fish to make it surface, while looking around. A modern city. The eye is a long bridge, the bridge is brightly lit, and there is a lot of traffic. Fantasy, Qin Yang called out in his heart, did you succeed? Successful, this is not the world of pirates. Fantasy Jean said. Nonsense, there is no such modern city in the pirate world. Qin Yang was speechless for a while. What kind of world is this? By the way, scan it. What mysterious power is nearby? Scanning finished. Fantasy Jean was silent for a long time. No mysterious power has been found. As for what world it is, you need to observe it yourself. Hearing this, Qin Yang nodded. It's a newcomer, let's make some noise first, maybe we can draw some familiar characters. Having said that, this kind of thought just flashed by, and Qin Yang gave up this plan. After all, it was a new world, and he didn't know what was going on. It was unwise to cause a commotion in such a grand manner. If it is a modern revision of the novel world, there may be a few old monsters in the Mahayana period. Forget it, change back to the body first. With a thought, the space-time fish disappeared, replaced by Qin Yang's body. As soon as the transformation of the form was completed, Qin Yang immediately sensed the approach of a breath. Someone's coming this way, quite fast, much faster than Marine Rokushiki's shave. In this way, Qin Yang immediately let go of his perception. About 3 kilometers away, a girl in black clothes was rushing towards this side. Deadwood Rukia. Qin Yang was stunned. This is the Death God world. The so-called world of the god of death is the world that the Vice Captain Aizen transformed into. This world is full of spirits. After human beings die, their souls degenerate and turn into monsters called void, and the god of death is the one who purifies the void. Interesting, it turned out to be the world of death. Qin Yang walked out of the river and walked to the shore. Since it's the god of death, try to summon Aizen. With a thought, Qin Yang's chest projected a light. The light group flew out and immediately turned into a human shape, gradually turning into the appearance of Aizen. However, at the moment when it was about to be completed, this phantom body collapsed directly, and with a puff, it scattered into a ball. It really doesn't work. Is there some law that I don't know about? Qin Yang murmured softly, fantasy. Fantasy Jean replied, yes, in this world, Aizen is a phantom that is difficult to summon. No, it's inaccurate to say that it cannot be summoned for the time being. You need to activate a new transformation before you can summon it. And it is using this world. The new transformation opened by the mysterious power of the devil fruit will not work. Quote. Why is this? Qin Yang asked curiously. It's not that Aizen cannot be summoned, it just needs a condition. This is interesting, there are two blue dyes in the same world. Because of repulsion, forcibly summoned, the phantom body will collapse just like before. But as long as you open a new phantom body and your body absorbs the mysterious power of this world, this repulsion will disappear. Probably equivalent to the feeling of merging the world. Qin Yang thought in his heart, I see. Then, let's deal with the guests first. As soon as the voice fell, his eyes turned to the other side. A girl appeared on the river. The girl's name is Kuchiki Rukia, and her identity is death. You. Kuchiki Rukia stared blankly at Qin Yang, who was dressed in white, unable to speak for a while. It's not you, it's strange. What's going on? But, you can see me. You are who? Strange dress, strange man. He. Qin Yang laughed twice and sang in a low voice, the 61 binding Dao, 6 stand light prison. The moment he heard those words, Kuchiki Rukia's expression changed drastically. She didn't expect the other party to launch an attack at all, and she couldn't believe it turned out to be a ghost. Swish. 6 golden light sheets pierced into her abdomen from 6 directions. In an instant, her soul was fixed, and her body couldn't move a single finger. What? Kuchiki Rukia's eyes widened and she tried to break free, but she felt powerless for a while, abandoned the chant. This is the captain level. Chapter 0427-New Mysterious Power. Give up singing. Kuchiki Rukia's eyes widened, full of incredible color. The ability Qin Yang uses is the ghost path, which is the unique power of the god of death. Generally, he needs to sing incantations to help stimulate it. Abandoning singing is not impossible, but that is something that high-level death gods can do, and after abandoning singing, the power of ghosts will weaken. Having personally experienced the spiritual pressure of the 6 stand light prison, Kuchiki Rukia knew that the man in front of him was definitely captain level. Captain level. Kuchiki Rukia was shocked. Who are you? In the world where the god of death lives, there are only so many captain level gods of death. She is sure that in all the information she knows, there is no information about this man. This is simply incredible. In the city where he is stationed, there is such a character hidden. Suddenly, Kuchiki Rukia's heart moved, and she blurted out, the silver river in the sky before, has something to do with you. Hearing this, Qin Yang did not answer, but looked at the other party calmly. Kuchiki Rukia, from the Soul World, a member of the 13th Division of the 13th Team of the Guardian, is stationed in the real empty town of death. The girl is not tall, she is estimated to be only about 1.45 meters, not even close to Qin Yang's chest, and looks very weak and slender. However, the spiritual pressure emanating from his body is not too weak. It is about 1/20th of Qin Yang's, which is about 5% of Qin Yang's. Thinking of this, Qin Yang immediately called in his heart, Han, scan. Scanning ended. Found mysterious power. Number 1, orientation in this girl's waist. Waist. Qin Yang followed his gaze, and on Kuchiki Rukia's waist was a great sword, to be precise. It was Zanpakuto, the weapon of the god of death. The mysterious power of this world is not the Reiki, but the Zanpakuto. Qin Yang was amazed. He thought that if he went to the soul realm, or the void circle, he would be full of spiritual suns that he could absorb, but now it seems that pure spiritual power is meaningless and needs a Zanpakuto. With that in mind, he approached Rukia Kuchiki, approached the opponent, and then slowly pulled out the opponent's blade. The unreleased Zanpakuto is just a slightly special sword. What do you want to do? Kuchiki Rukia couldn't help but look nervous. Give me back the knife. Who are you? For these, Qin Yang turned a deaf ear, ready to try what would happen if he absorbed this Zanpakuto. However, Fantasy Jean said, It is not recommended that you absorb it. The mysterious power contained in this knife is not enough to open a new illusion. Really? Qin Yang was stunned, and then understood. Do you need a more advanced Zanpakuto? It can also be said that a captain-level Zanpakuto is enough. Of course, a general vice-captain level, or an officer, may need a few. Fantasy Jean explained. Instead of absorbing this sword, it's better to wait for this girl to grow up and be able to Bankai, and then absorb it. Reaper's Zanpakuto can be released in 2 stages, first Shikai, then Bankai. The sword in front of him obviously can only be mastered by Shikai, and Bankai can generally be mastered by captains. You're right. Qin Yang nodded. However, if I absorb it, will this knife disappear? I don't know. Fantasy Jean said affirmatively. Maybe it will disappear, maybe it will become an ordinary shallow blow, and it will never be liberated. No matter which one, the value of the current knife is too low. After listening to this, Qin Yang wondered. It was time to find a captain-level Reaper, grab the opponent's Zanpakuto, and then try to absorb it. Coincidentally, in the city of Kusa Town, there are 2 captain-level death gods. As for this one, I'll give it back to Kuchiki Rukia for now. When the other party can Bankai, I'll consider whether to absorb it or not. Give it back to you. Qin Yang put the knife back and said with a low smile, Who are you asking me? Ha ha ha, you don't need to know. I ask you a question, if you answer truthfully, I will let you go. I won't answer. A guy of unknown origin like you, no matter what you ask. Kuchiki Rukia gritted her teeth. She was bound by the 6 sticks of light and could not move, but it was impossible for her to bow to the evil forces. She has marked Qin Yang as an evil person who gained the power of death. Do you know Ichigo Kurosaki? Qin Yang was too lazy to say more and asked directly. Hearing this, Kuchiki Rukia showed a hint of confusion, but she reacted instantly. However, this trace of confusion was still captured by Qin Yang. It seems that she hasn't encountered Kurosaki Ichigo yet. Thinking about it, once they meet, she will lose the power of the god of death, but judging from her appearance in Kakuzako, it is a recent event. Ichigo Kurosaki is an interesting person with an extraordinary growth rate. Qin Yang felt that instead of waiting for Rukia Kuchiki to learn Bankai, it is better to expect Ichigo Kurosaki to learn it as soon as possible. I am satisfied with your answer, and I will bypass you for the time being. Qin Yang grinned Isho, slowly stretched out his right palm, and pressed it in front of Kuchiki Rukia in the air. Close your eyes, sleeping palm. As soon as the voice fell, in an instant, a huge spiritual pressure emanated from Qin Yang's palm. This spiritual pressure was condensed and not released, and it shrouded the top of Kuchiki Rukia's head. What? Hit by the Reiatsu, Kuchiki Rukia's soul was shaken, and then she fell into a deep sleep. Get it done. Qin Yang withdrew his hand, glanced at the fallen Rukia, and then turned to leave. He was not afraid of Kuchiki Rukia speaking out about this matter. Anyway, Qin Emperor's identity appeared relatively few times, so it was irrelevant. Compared to this, there are 2 captain-level Shinigami in Kakuza Town. The first is Kurosaki Ichigo's father, Kurosaki Isshin, but this man has lost the power of death, let alone Zanpakuto. The other is Qin Yang's next goal. Urahara Kazuki, remember that his Zanpakuto was called Red Heim. Walking away, Qin Yang's body melted into the darkness, and then turned into black smoke. He turned into a shadow demon, sneaked into the shadows, and searched for the location of Kazuki Urahara in the city. This guy opened a small shop, and in front of a small boss, he secretly fought with Aizen Sosuke. First absorb his Hongji, start a new transformation, and then become Aizen, go to the Hollow Circle. The current Aizen, in the world of corpse souls, I can safely be my captain, I use the Phantom Aizen to go to the virtual world. Circle, you can directly take over his power and do some damage by the way. Quote. Of course, this is not important, what is important is the mysterious power. Since Death God's Zanpakuto can absorb it, there must be some kind of mysterious power in the virtual circle. The plan was very simple. Chin Yong did not delay for a moment, and acted quickly. After spending about 3 hours, Chin Yong searched in a carpet-like manner and finally found Kazuki Urahara's location. He flew high in the sky, looking down at the shop below indifferently. "I am so sorry, you're the closest, you can only try it with your knife." Chapter 0428-I Wait is a Dream. Grim Reaper, don't choose Hokage. Fairy tale, well, forget Hokage, fairy tale may write later. By the way, the world in the future will not be as long as Pirates. If you write about life in another world starting from zero, or any other non-migrant manga, it will probably be around 150 chapters. Close black lens bracket. This small grocery store, hidden in the corner of Kakusa town, is inconspicuous. The grocery store was lit up, and in a living room with a gentle breeze, 2 men sat facing each other. On the low table is a hot pot. Some people add base and thick soup to it. After soaking in boiling hot water, it emits a rich aroma. Oh, it's a hard day, only this time is the happiest. Taijai, did you know? Hot pot originated from China, and it was called antique soup in ancient times. The person who invented this kind of food was a genius. Quote. The speaker had green eyes, short light huang-colored hair, and a little stubble on his chin. He was wearing a dark green short jacket, light green trousers, and a green and white fisherman's hat on his head. His name is Kazuki Urahara. And sitting opposite this person, the person who shared the hot pot is called Huling Tai Jai. Figure is tall, with mirrors, and his arms are full of muscles. At first glance, he is a powerful character. At this moment, Huling Tejai maintained his usual unsmiling face and whispered, "Manager, are you still in the mood to enjoy it at this time?" "That's right, the guests are here." Urahara Kazuki paused with his right hand, put down the chopsticks gently, and lowered the smoke, then said in a low voice, "Since you're here, you don't have to hide, it's just a matter of adding a pair of chopsticks." "Oh, as expected of Kazuki Urahara, how did you discover my existence?" In the living room, a ghostly voice sounded out of thin air. The voice seemed to come from all directions. With the voice of the voice, at the sliding door, a cloud of dark smoke slowly overflowed, gradually condensing into a flowing and rolling black shadow. "Your ability to hide is really surprising," Urahara Kazuki said in surprise. "I didn't realize it at such a close distance. If it hadn't touched the ghosts set up outside, I wouldn't have known that there were foreign objects invading." It turned out to be the ghost path, the higher enchantment in the bound path, or the vigilance technique. Shadow Demon nodded clearly. "It doesn't matter, I have no intention of hiding it anyway." "Who are you?" Huling Tiejai took the lead to get up and watched the Shadow Demon vigilantly. "No, you are not human, you can't feel the existence of your soul, you are just a cloud of black smoke." "Accurately speaking, it's the shadow." The Shadow Demon corrected, and then Isho said, He, I am the Shadow Demon, I am looking for you today." As soon as the words fell, he rushed over immediately. The whole person exudes billowing black smoke. Like a big net, it is shrouded in the grip of Ling Taijai. The enemy. Holding Ling Taijai's expression stunned, he immediately slapped it with a palm, the 32 of the Broken Dao, Yellow Mountain. When a conflict broke out in the house, he didn't care about causing damage, and immediately attacked it with ghosts. Immediately, the spirits gathered together, forming a thin, sakura-colored impact in the palm of their hand. With a swoosh, this attack pierced through the black net and pierced through the gate behind the Shadow Demon. In the sound of the explosion, billowing black smoke swept out, and all of a sudden, he approached the front of Gyro Tejai. "What?" Huling Tejai's face froze. "Ignore my ghost way." Ghosts are powers that specifically attack the spirit body, or, in other words, are specifically aimed at the soul, and are useful to the virtual, to the god of death, and to humans. But it is invalid at this moment, indicating that the other party is not inhuman, non-god and non-virtual. The next moment, the black color turned into a chain of dark ropes, tying up Goroshi Tetsuhai in an instant. At the same time, Urahara Kazuki stepped back and stood in the corner of the room, observing the battle. Yin Yao, just now, I didn't dodge Taijai's attack, but ignored it. The attack penetrated his body. Urahara Kazuki looked solemn. The enemy was beyond imagination, and he seemed to know himself very well. Could it be a special ghost made by Aizen? No, he is not a ghost. What is it? Even the purpose of the visit is unclear, and the origin is impossible to guess. While he was thinking, Chinyong faltered a shot, and after briefly restraining Ling Tizai, he suddenly waved his hand towards Urahara Kazuki. Shadow gun. Whoosh whoosh. The shadow walked against the ground, and came to Kazuki Urahara in an instant, and the next moment, it turned into 3 long dark shadows, and suddenly flew out from the ground. It seems that the 2-dimensional entity has suddenly become a 3-dimensional entity. Seeing that before the attack approached Shang, Chengqiang was about to pierce through Shang's bore, Urahara Kazuki VV's eyes widened, and he dodged immediately. Instant step. Urahara Kazuki suddenly disappeared in place, and as he dodged, the 3 long Cheng fell in the air, directly piercing the wooden wall behind him. Boom. After a brief confrontation, the living room here is already full of savages and a mess. Strange ability, Urahara Kazuki appeared on the other side of the room, staring at the shadow demon, and said, "What was your purpose when you said you were looking for us? If you want to buy something, please come back tomorrow, now the Urahara store is closed." Sure enough, I'm not good at fighting, and facing 2 Shinigami with captain-level Reiatsu at the same time, it's not so easy to succeed. The shadow demon was not chasing, but stood in the center of the living room with calm eyes. Holding Ling Taijai has broken free from the negligence of the black rope. At this moment, his palms are facing each other, ready to inspire ghost realms at any time. I am careless, he secretly said inwardly. Physical attacks can't touch him, and ghost ways are also ineffective. What is this guy? As if seeing what he was thinking, the shadow demon chuckled lightly. He, no need to guess, all the answers in your minds are wrong. Urahara Kazuki, you look at my ability with a relaxed face, too confident to. Quote. This is what I want to say. Urahara Kazuki said. The people behind you, let you come here alone, aren't you afraid of leaking? He fumbled with words, trying to know something. According to his guess, the peculiar creature like the shadow demon was probably created by the power of Bengyu, so it was inferred that the shadow demon was probably Aizen. Don't beat around the bush. It doesn't hurt to tell you directly. Probably guessing the other party's mind, the shadow demon haha, Isho said, I'm waiting for it to be a dream. Dream. Urahara Kazuki's expression changed drastically. The color change this time is not because of the word, dream, but because of the sentence, I'm waiting. Suddenly, Urahara Kazuki leapt to the wall behind Po Shen. And following his movements, under the floor of the living room, a pitch-black ghost hand suddenly stretched out, and when he grabbed it, the entire house was shattered by the impact. At the same time, the gloomy demon wind raged, blowing people's whole body cold. In the explosion, a handsome man stepped out. I'm waiting for a dream, you should know my name, I'm the big monster of Japan Ibaraki Doji. Chapter 0429 _ the 17th change Abe Seimei. I am a dream. My name, you should know, the great monster in Japanese legend Ibaraki Doji. The explosion, Ibaraki Doji stepped out, his eyes locked on Kazuki Urahara who were not far away. Ibaraki Doji, Goroshi Tetsuai's eyes widened, and he said incredulously, the store manager, he said he was Ibaraki Doji. There are many monsters in Japan, but among them, Kappa, Shuden Doji, Nine-tailed Fox Tamamome, Big Tengu, Snow Girl, Hanja, and so on are the most famous. Of course, Ibaraki Doji is one of them. Of course Gurutsusai and Urahara Kazuki knew, but it was impossible not to know. Just because I know it makes me feel incredible. Because the death god system was established more than 2,000 years ago, and the legend of monsters, after the birth of the death god system, is just a legend. How can monsters exist? Ibaraki Doji sneered and said, I saw this sentence from your expressions. Unfortunately, monsters exist. When your death gods are fighting against Shu, I will wait for monsters. Always there, watching you silently. How is that possible? Urahara Kazuki couldn't help shaking his head, apparently finding it difficult to accept such shocking news. Can't you believe it? Ibaraki Doji hummed and said, don't you study for a long time? Why don't you try to catch me, cut it open and study it, then you will naturally understand. Of course, this is just sarcasm. However, it does work. Urahara Kazuki was silent. He raised his hand and pressed his hat on his hat, and said after a while, you guys have been provoking me intentionally or not since the beginning, trying to make me fight with you. What's the purpose? Who knows? However, you're right. Since it's delivered to your door, my interest in you has grown stronger. Between the words, Urahara Kazuki did not know when he had already held a straight sword in his hand. This shop is my Minggen-san, why don't we change the place? Let's go, Tejai sang. Saying that, he turned and ran. Seeing this, Ibaraki Doji and Shadow Demon immediately chased after them. The four rushed out of the living room and came to the storage room. They saw that the floor of the storage room was opened, and the four jumped in one after another. Ibaraki Doji fell a full tens of meters, his eyes suddenly opened up. In the basement of Urahara store, it is a huge underground space. I am afraid it is the size of a football field, and there is an artificial sky above it, which is lifelike. Seeing Ibaraki Doji and the Shadow Demon following one after another, Urahara Kazuki couldn't help but say, you guys seem to be familiar with this place. You follow me boldly. If it is said that the art masters are bold, it is also true, but Urahara Kazuki always feels a bit inconsistent. It seems that the other party knows him very well and knows it like the back of his hand. This, Ibaraki Doji dismissed it. I said before, we monsters have been watching you death gods. So that's the case, the so-called dream, is it a monster organization? The shadow monster next to it is also a monster, right? Urahara Kazuki nodded, probably sketching a mysterious background. Dream, a mysterious force gathered by a group of monsters, and today, two of the monsters came to the door, and their purpose was unknown. Of course, this is just an inference, the possibility is less than 30%, and the specifics can only be confirmed after he catches the two people in front of him and conducts research. Stop talking nonsense, I'm not interested in chatting with you about everyday life. A cold snort, Ibaraki Doji slapped it with a paw, Hell's hand. The demonic energy was rampant, as if it were all over the entire underground space. Urahara Kazuki raised his head sharply, only to see a dark force condensed above his head, a ghost hand stretched out of it, and suddenly grabbed him. Cry, Hanji. Urahara Kazuki whispered in his mouth, and at the same time as the sound came out, the Zanpakuto in his hand suddenly made a hoof scream, and the next moment, it was swung out, the spiritual pressure condensed, turned into a blood-red slash, and shot into the sky. The slash collided with the hand of hell, and the two forces exploded immediately. Boom. In this underground space full of loess and rocks, choking smoke and dust were set off. At this moment, Ibaraki Doji approached rapidly, his right hand turned into a claw, and the black flame in the palm was burning. Black flame. Approaching 5 meters in front of Kazuki Urahara, Ibaraki Doji slammed the flames out. The inextinguishable fire turned into a shock and approached Kazuki Urahara in an instant. Strange ability, not spiritual power. Is it really a monster? At the critical moment, Urahara Kazuki calmly analyzed the power of Ibaraki Doji, seeing the flames engulfing him. In a tenth of a second, he raised the blade in his hand in front of Shang. The shield of Shuexia. There was a whisper in my heart, and in an instant, the spiritual pressure above the blade extended. It went out and turned into a blood-red shield, blocking out all the flames. We won. Seeing this, Ibaraki Doji did not attack again, but stood there and said with a chuckle. Hearing this, Urahara Kazuki Vivi was startled, and then his complexion changed drastically. What? He was shocked to find that he could no longer move, and his body seemed to be fixed in this space. Apart from the ability to turn his head, his legs, hands, and even spiritual power could not gather. What? He turned his head laboriously and looked behind him, only to see a ghostly shadow slowly appearing, half of his body in the shadow under his feet. Shadow doll. Shadow demon couldn't help laughing. It's so naive, Kazuki Urahara, how could we two be your opponents? From the very beginning, I waited for the moment when you were careless. It's a pity, I know you well, and you didn't know anything about me, so we won. Hearing this, Huling Tejai, who was not far away, had a dull expression on his face, and suddenly looked to the other side. There, the dark figure was just a cloud of black mist. Clone. He opened his mouth with a dull expression. No, it's just a cloud of black smoke. I've been cheated. The store manager. He shouted, and he was about to save people. Don't move, if you don't want him to die, just stand there obediently. The shadow demon said calmly. Hearing the words, Holding Tiejai's body suddenly stiffened. Urahara Kazuki looked solemn. He looked at Ibaraki Doji, who was walking towards him, and said, What is your purpose? Nothing, just interested in the Zanpakuto in your hand. Ibaraki Doji approached him, snatched the Zanpakuto with one hand, and said, Shadow demon, open the shadow world. As soon as the voice fell, the shadow demon stretched out his hand and waved, and the space was torn apart. Ibaraki Doji glanced at the two of them, 3.4, and then took Hongji and stepped into the shadow world. I'll be back soon, and until then, don't move anyone. After leaving a sentence, Ibaraki Doji disappeared in front of the three of them. Entering another dimension, Ibaraki Doji will begin to absorb this Zanpakuto. Huan, is this knife okay? No problem, the mysterious power it contains is much stronger than that little girl's knife, more than 10 times. Very good, then absorb it. As soon as the voice fell, a swallowing force suddenly enveloped the blade. I saw that the blade was like dust, slowly dissipating, and at the same time, a mysterious power different from the devil fruit was gradually absorbed. The next moment, Ibaraki Doji's figure faded, his face changed, and the nature of his strength also changed. At the same time, in my mind, information about the new transformation appeared. 17th change. The Great Onmyoji, and by Kingming. Chapter 0430-Grieving Urahara Kazuki. 17th change. The Great Onmyoji, and by Kingming. Star rating. Ability 1. Shikigami Binding. Ability 2. Spells. It turned out to be an Onmyoji. Chinyang touched his face and found that he had changed from Ibaraki Doji to another typical Onmyoji figure in a snow-white yin-yang suit and a black high hat. Chinyang didn't know much about Onmyoji, but he still had some general knowledge. Onmyoji, originated in China, became popular in Japan, and became part of the unique Japanese Shinto, Onmyoji. Onmyoji are fortune-tellers or illusionists. They not only understand the stars and faces, but also measure directions and know disasters. In addition, they are widely known as painting talismans and reciting spells, and one-paper style. God. Shikigami. I don't know if spirit bodies like Death God and Shu can be restrained as Shikigami. Chinyang couldn't help but think that he had activated the 17 changes, and at the same time he had also acquired some knowledge related to Onmyoji, which was so huge that he would not be able to fully understand it for a while. However, and by Seimei, this is the top 15 Onmyoji in Japanese history. There are countless stories about his novels, scripts, TV, and animations. I don't know where they came from. Chinyang shook his head and carefully felt his own abilities. Shikigami restraint is the ability to seal the target spirit body through a special talisman for its own drive. I don't know if it has any effect on Shinigami and Shu, but I think it should be possible. As for ability 2, spells, this is very simple, it is some spells in Onmyoji. This transformation, there is not much bright spot. Chinyang concluded his evaluation, saying, except for the Shikigami restraint that can barely be seen, the rest of the Onmyoji are not very good. This transformation, the 5-star ability is still very strong. Fantasy Jean suddenly said. 5-star. If I want to upgrade him to the full, it will cost too much resources, so it's better to open another transformation. Chinyang shook his head and said, speaking of which, why is my body all 6-star, and the newly opened transformation is far less powerful than the previous ones? The previous accelerator, Ludaoban, and Divine Beast Leigong were all very strong. As a result, when they reached the 17th change, they suddenly became weaker by 1 level. Although they were upgraded to 5 stars, they were estimated to be able to reach the combat power of the dominant level. Because this is the first incarnation of the new world. Fantasia said. Also, just the mysterious power of a Zanpakuto is equivalent to a devil fruit. To sum up, the general idea is that there are too few mysterious powers, and it is the first time in the new world, so it can only reach this level. I see, but forget it. I already understood it when I absorbed the Zanpakuto just now. Chinyang chuckled and said, the Zanpakuto will not disappear. To be precise, the hilt will not disappear, the blade will dissipate. You can return it to Kazuki Urahara and let him take the time to recover. After a while, I can take it again. Quote. This kind of feeling is like growing vegetables and giving the seeds to others. The farmer has worked hard to cultivate the things, and then he goes to pick the fruits. If that's the case, then put the new transformation aside for now, and maybe it will be used later. After all, the ability of Shikigami restraint is still very good. Compared with this, Aizen can already use it. Thinking of this, Chinyang thought about it. Immediately, a white light flew out from his mouth, and quickly turned into the appearance of Aizen Kuyusuke. Sure enough, after absorbing the power of Zanpakuto, I have integrated into this world, and the world will no longer exclude me. Illusory Aizen nodded with satisfaction. Next, you can go to the virtual circle. The real Aizen is the captain of the death god in the soul world, and the virtual night palace just happens to be for me. However, before that, Kuruhim's hilt must be returned to Kazuki Urahara. This, Chinyang made Ibaraki Doji appear again, controlled him to take the hilt, and left the shadow world. Urahara's store basement. Urahara Kazuki could hardly move, and even speaking was very difficult. You take my Zanpakuto, what do you want? Don't worry, I'll give it back to you right away. Shadow Demon snorted, aren't you nervous at all? While this situation was not expected, staying calm is the most important thing. Urahara Kazuki said calmly, you are so powerful that you can control your opponent unconsciously. He tried to talk, and was very curious about the so-called monster's ability. And after experiencing it for himself, he felt a little bit. Ignore physical and ghost attacks, and at the same time have a strong control ability. You are really not good at fighting, what you are good at is. Speaking of which, Ibaraki Doji stepped out of the crack in the shadow world. It's yours. Ibaraki Doji dropped the handle of Hongji's sword, and then said to the shadow demon, the mission has been completed, let's go. This, the shadow demon immediately untied the shadow doll, and together with Ibaraki Doji, quickly entered the shadow world and disappeared. Goodbye, Urahara Kazuki, we will meet again. Until then, you should practice hard and become stronger. Ha 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 ha. Swish. The crack in the shadow world, along with this sentence, slowly closed, as if it had never existed. And for these, Urahara Kazuki seems to have not heard of it. He stared blankly at Hongji on the ground with a dull expression on his face. The blade is broken. Urahara Kazuki Vivi trembled, picked up Kuki, and felt it carefully in the palm of his hand. Zanpakuto is very special, it was the same from the very beginning. All the Zanpakuto obtained by Shinigami were initially shallow strikes without any special power. With the respective use of the Shinigami, the form and ability of the Zanpakuto will also be built with the soul of Shinigami as the prototype. 017 To put it simply, shallow play is just an unfinished form, and after the development and training of the god of death, Shikai and Benkai can be performed to achieve a complete form. It's not just that the blade is broken Hongji, it was beaten back to its original shape. Urahara Kazuki murmured in shock. What did those two people do? How did they do it? The blade is broken and can be repaired, but it was beaten back to the prototype. I am afraid that even Shikai can't do it now, so he can only practice from scratch. Dream. Rao is Urahara Kazuki's mentality, and at this moment he can't help but feel a little angry, and his tone is a little trembling. However, Chinyang is not interested in ignoring him now. In the shadow world, Chinyang controls the phantom body blue dye, trying to open the channel of the virtual circle. Black cavity. In this world, in addition to the present world, there are virtual circle, corpse soul world, hell, and so on. If you want to go from this world to other worlds, you need a special method. Among them, the virtual circle is the black cavity, which is the hole that tears the sky. Chinyang gave up after some mooting. Although he can use Aizen's ability, he doesn't have all the knowledge of Aizen, and he only knows a little about Haichang. It seems that I have to create a broken face to help me open the black hole. On the throne, Chinyang gently issued the Bengyu in Wan's hands. The next moment, he took a step forward and appeared in Kakuza town. Chapter 0431 Is this also worthy of being a subordinate? It seems that we need to find a phantom and use its power to enter the phantom circle. Above Kongza town, Chinyang stood up in the sky, overlooking the entire city. The city in the middle of the night is full of feasting and feasting. A long river runs through the cities. The long bridge above the river is shining with lights, like night lights, embellishing the picture in front of you. Chinyang slowly closed his eyes and let go of his perception, covering the entire city. Kakuza Hanmachi, Nanchuanis, Ponderosa, Sanomiya, Gakuin Town, Yuzawa, Kitagawa, Chuntai, Mazi, etc., all areas of Kakuza town are under Chinyang's perception. It can be perceived that there are some wandering souls, as well as earthbound spirits, resentful spirits, dead spirits, and so on. Suddenly, in the vicinity of Gakuin-cho, there was a monster's chirping. Roar. The voice is very harsh, full of tyranny and killing. Fake roar. Chinyang raised his eyebrows, moved quickly, and walked in the direction of the voice. This is a roar made by Shu, and people who do not have spiritual pressure cannot hear it. Normally, when he heard the virtual roar, the Shinigami stationed in Kakuza town would act quickly to purify the virtual. However, Kuchiki Rukia was stunned by Chinyang before, and now she is still lying by the river, so naturally no one will go to clear it. Therefore, Chinyang was not in a hurry at all. About a quarter of an hour later, Chinyang arrived at the target position. This is a secluded street near Shuiyuan town. There are bars and nightclubs. When Chinyang arrived, he could see a middle-aged man lying on the side of the road. The man's head was bleeding, he had lost signs of life, and his soul had disappeared, apparently being swallowed up by the void. Is it a little late? Chinyang shook his head. It doesn't matter, a brainless thing like a low-level virtual, as long as you add a little bait, you will be attracted immediately. Saying so, Chinyang exuded a slight breath of soul. The next moment, a false roar sounded immediately. Behind Chinyang, a black gap appeared in the space, and then a 10-meter-high monster came out. The monster stood on two legs, with a dark body, an empty hole in front of the shang, and a bone mask on its face, like a horse's face. Roar. After showing up, the virtual head immediately rushed towards Chinyang. Sure enough, it is at the level of beasts. No, beasts are not as good as beasts. Beasts know how to judge danger. Chinyang slowly stretched out his left palm, and pressed it towards the low-level void that rushed towards him. At the same time, his eyes flashed, and suddenly, a huge force appeared in the palm of his hand, as if there was an invisible force suppressing this virtual body. You. The next second, the virtual head was slapped to the ground like a fly. Tilda. Mirror door. Chin Young whispered, and in an instant, a barrier enveloped the low-level emptiness. This is a high-level enchantment in the bondage path. It can rebound external attacks, but it is very easy to destroy from the inside, mainly because it can isolate the effect of Reiatsu. Shu, do you want to gain power? You devour human souls like this, and you are only filling your stomach. I can give you powerful strength. Standing in front of Shu, Chin Young said calmly, don't you understand? The mind doesn't exist, it seems that it is better to break the face. Thinking of this, Chin Young put his hand in front of Shang, and suddenly, blue light flashed, and a precious jade with infinite power slowly appeared. Banu. Chin Young held the Bengyu, integrated his will into it, and used the power of Bengyu to transform the empty soul in front of him. Ka ka ka. Only the sound of broken bones sounded, and the low-level phantom who was knocked to the ground, the phantom mask on his face was cracking again. At the same time, a spiritual pressure that was several times stronger than before suddenly overflowed from his body. Fortunately, Chin Young was prepared to release the mirror gate barrier first, otherwise he would definitely be perceived by the rest of the Kongza town. In Kuzu town, apart from Kurosaki Ishin and Urahara Kazuki, the two former captains of the God of Death, there is another force that used to be a powerful God of Death, but gained the power of emptiness, known as the Masked Army. Chin Young has no interest in paying attention to this group of people for the time being. The process of breaking the face lasted for about 3 minutes. This low-level virtual mask finally shattered in half, and only the top of the forehead remained. The monster-like appearance has also returned to the appearance of a human, at least it looks like a human. At the same time, behind it, a Zanpakuto appeared. Thank you for your strength. The broken face of the horse's face knelt down excitedly and bowed before Chin Young. I offended you before. My name is Aizen. Chin Young interrupted the other party's apology and said plainly, you open the black tone, I'm going to the virtual circle. Yes. Mamian didn't dare to ask more questions, and immediately waved his right hand, tearing apart the space. I saw a black hole on the secluded street, and there was an aura that was different from reality, which was full of spirits. Very good. Chin Young nodded with satisfaction, and immediately stepped into the black cavity, only took 3 steps, then turned to look at Mamian Bromian, and said, young Bromian, you don't have to follow me, now the death god in Kakusa town has been captured. I'm stunned, and you can destroy it with all your might. After speaking, he walked into the black cavity. And as he left, the black cavity also closed like a monster's mouth. Ha ha ha, is this what power feels like? As soon as Chin Young left, Ma's face suddenly burst into laughter. Lord Aizen. HMPH, it's just a mere god of death. When I devour enough souls, I'll go to rule the virtual circle. Saying that, he smashed the mirror gate barrier with one punch. The next moment, a face-breaking spiritual pressure suddenly shook Kakuza-cho. In an instant, many powerful beings in Kongza town felt this breath. In an abandoned factory, on a worn treadmill, a man in gloves suddenly stopped exercising. On the sofa beside, the girl who looked at the little yellow book also had flashing eyes. A big fat man who practiced ghost ways raised his head in amazement and looked in the direction of Gakuin-cho. His line of sight seemed to penetrate the physical distance and saw a new face. Hiroko, who is this? A handsome blonde man washing dishes said in shock. Reiatsu similar to us. The man called Hiroko stood by the window on the 2nd floor of the factory, looking gloomily at the sky outside. Mature broken face Aizen. As soon as the voice fell, his figure had disappeared in front of the window. At the same time, in the black cavity. In a dark space, Chin Young walked towards the depths. Every step he took, a spiritual path was born under his feet. He a idiot who suddenly gained enormous power and lost his eyes with power. This kind of character is also worthy of calling me, sir. Be my subordinate, just say hello to the masked army. Chin Young smiled at him, put his hands in his pockets, and slowly walked towards the depths of the black cavity. After a long time, the eyes lit up, the darkness in front disappeared, replaced by a deserted world. Virtual Circle. Chapter 0432-10 Blades Legion. Virtual Circle. Passing through the black cavity, the scene you see is a deserted world. Qin walked out of the black cavity, stepped on the sand, and looked around. In the deserted world, which is desolate and without sound, occasionally a few dead trees can be seen growing. The sky is night, there are no stars, only a new moon hangs high. Here it should be the outer circle. Qin said softly. The virtual circle is very large, and even at his speed, it is difficult to see the end after flying for a week. But roughly speaking, the virtual circle can be divided into two parts. The inner circle is under the jurisdiction of Aizen with the Zai Palace as the center, and the outer circle has Daxu dispatched by it as duties. The outer circle is the scene in front of you, the desert wilderness. That broken face actually connected the passage to this kind of place. Qin couldn't help shaking his head. He slowly flew up, and flew to the height of 700 or 800 meters before finally seeing the shadow of Zai Palace. Locking the direction, Qin immediately flew with all his strength. It took several hours before Qin finally came to the inner circle. In the direction of vision, a figure flew from inside the Zai Palace. The man was wearing a snow-white 770 Void Night Palace costume, with a void mask with horns on his head. After getting closer, Qin could see the other side clearly. He had short black hair, pale complexion and dark green eyes, and there were dark lines on his face that looked like tears. After approaching, the man stopped in front of Qin and stared for a while, then he made a fist on his chest with his right hand, and at the same time Vivi bowed. Lord Aizen, welcome back. Hearing this, Qin said with a peaceful smile, Ulquiorra, you are the only one here. Yes, I sense the spiritual pressure of Aizen-sama, so I came to check the situation. Several of the other 10 blades are not in the Zai Palace. Really, you go and contact them and have them come to see me. Saying that, Qin flew towards the Zai Palace first. Yes, Aizen-sama. Ulquiorra had no doubts about him, though deep in his heart there was a tinge of doubt. Aizen should be in the Soul realm, or the captain of the 5th division, and he should be wearing a death tyrant outfit of the god of death, not the current Snow White Night Palace. Could it be that before Aizen came to the virtual circle, did he deliberately change his clothes? This statement is obviously not valid. Then, there is a contradiction here. Of course, this is just a small problem. There will be no fake Reiatsu, that is indeed the Aizen-sama that Ulquiorra knows well. Immediately, he began to contact the other 10 blades. After half a day, in the Zai Palace, in a tea room, Qin sat on the main seat and carefully looked at the group of 10 blades. Number 1, Koyatai Stark. No. 2 inches Lagang Ruzenban. Number 3, Tia Heliber. Number 4, Ulquiorra Cipher. No. 5, Nutra Gilger. Number 6, Grimjiao Jacquard. Number 7, absent. Number 8, absent. Number 9, absent. N0.10, absent. Have you not come back for almost half? Qin glanced over and said calmly, it doesn't matter, this time I'm here in the virtual circle, it's not an important matter, a few people are enough. Lord Aizen, the 30th Blade Haribel asked softly, what is the order? Well, let's have a cup of black tea first. Qin posture was extravagant, he clapped his hands, and suddenly came in with a broken face carrying tea, and served tea to several people one by one. Taking advantage of this little time, Qin secretly observed these people. The old one is the image of a lazy uncle, and among the few people present, there are only 2 people who break the face on their own, and the other is the 4th youngest, Ulquiorra. The second child, the former king of the virtual circle, known as the Great Emperor Balagang, was defeated and surrendered by Aizen at that time many years ago, and then gave up the virtual Night Palace and was included in the new organization 10 Blades. The third child, Hannibal, was the only woman who had been rescued by Eisen once, so he was grateful to him. The fourth oldest, Ulquiorra, is a very interesting person. Among the 10 Blades, his combat power is extremely outstanding. Fifth, not worth mentioning. Sixth, not worth mentioning. Qinyang observed it silently, and finally came to a conclusion. These broken faces, except for the first and fourth, the broken faces of the other people have not reached an absolute stable state. Obviously, Eisen used his own broken jade to create. In this world, there are two pieces of Benyu, one is from Eisen and the other is from Kazuki Urahara. The collapsed jade of the two people is a failure, and after the fusion, it can be regarded as the real collapsed jade. However, the mature Benyu is in Qin Yang's hands. It can be said that this piece in his hand is the most powerful Benyu at present. After realizing this, Qin Yang thought about whether to create a batch of 10 blades himself to run errands for him. This kind of thing can be done, but to create a broken face, the original emptiness is very strong, otherwise it will be successful. That is to say, the level of the previous horse's face is far inferior to the 10 blades in front of him. You can also dig walls from these people. Qin Yang pondered for a moment, then shook his head secretly. We'll talk about this later. Magic, scan. Scanning ended mystic power found. However, there is a problem. Qin Yang was startled. What's the problem? The power of these broken faces is too complicated to absorb. Fantasy Jean said. Instead of absorbing their Zanpakudo, it is better to hunt Daxu and purify them with Benyu, those powers are much purer. Hearing this, Qin Yang pondered for a moment, and said, so it is. The power of the void can be absorbed after being purified by the collapsing jade, but the broken face can't be. Simply put, it's not pure enough. Fantasy Jean said. According to the spiritual pressure of the few people in front of me, I have a rough estimate that about 100 heads are large, and after purification, you can get a mysterious power. 100 heads. Qin Yang was shocked. Not surprised that the number is too large, but too small. In the virtual circle, there is a big virtual forest, and there are tens of thousands of big virtual trees in it. Very good. Qin Yang's eyes flashed, and he immediately said to the 10 blades present, I will come back this time and give you a mission. Lord Eisen, what is the mission? Ulquiorra asked. Hunt Daxu. At the same time, in another world that is different from reality and the virtual circle, the world of corpses. In the Soul Realm, there is a huge Saraiti, in which there are the 13 teams of Gote. The so-called captain-level death gods are the captains of these 13 teams. At this moment, in the 46th room in the center of the Saraiti, a captain-level death god is launching a massacre. In just a short moment, he killed all the officials in the entire 46th room. Standing in the conference room at this moment, this captain-level death god, with a peaceful smile, looked at the corpses around him. It's terrifying, Captain Eisen, the battle is over in an instant. At the entrance of the conference room, a silver-haired man leaned against the door frame, squinting and smiling like a poisonous snake. Bing is expensive and fast. Yin, you need to know more about the art of war. Eisen's face was as usual, and he said lightly, next, we will proceed as planned. Then, first inform Zai Palace. Chapter 0433_stupid blue die. Zai Palace, tea room. Qin Yang opened his mouth with a chuckle, and said, kill Daxu. Hunting Daxu. The 6 10 blades were stunned and looked at each other in confusion. Lord Eisen, is there any need to do this? Hannibal said in a deep voice, this subordinate is ignorant, please ask Eisen-sama to explain. It's about Benyu, you don't have to know why, just do it. Qin Yang was too lazy to explain, although it was easy to make up an excuse, but he is now the absolute overlord of Zai Palace, and there is no need to explain too much to his subordinates. The 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 5th, and 6th swordsmen, the 5 of you, go to the forest of Daksu, and each capture 100 Daksu and come back. Chin-Yang gave an order, then got up and looked at the 40th blade. Ulquiorra, come with me. Yes, Aizen-sama. The 6 of them all agreed, and no one dared to be dissatisfied immediately. 5-10 blades went to complete the task given by Chin-Yang, and Ulquiorra followed Chin-Yang to a communication room. The Zai Palace is very large. In addition to some 10 blades and the residences of their subordinate officials, there are also training, battle places, laboratories, communication rooms, detention rooms, and so on. Following Chin-Yang to the communication room, Ulquiorra asked in a low voice, Lord Aizen. I see you alone, what do you think I'll say? Chin-Yang looked at the huge screen in the communication room, and said with a chuckle, Ulquiorra, use your imagination and wisdom, guess and think as much as you want. Hearing this, Ulquiorra was silent for a while. I don't know. Everything Aizen-sama does must have a deep meaning, I can't see it through. He. Chin-Yang couldn't help laughing. Let me tell you directly, I'm not Aizen. Hearing his words, Ulquiorra couldn't help but froze. He guessed what Chin-Yang would say, but he never expected to say this. Lord Aizen. He focused a little, let go of his perception, and secretly said in his heart, Reiatsu is right, it's not some kind of illusion, the person in front of him is indeed Lord Aizen. He was sure that the person in front of him was not someone else pretending to be, and no matter how powerful the illusion ability, it was impossible to imitate Reiatsu exactly. Unless it is the complete hypnosis of Kyoka Suzuki, but that is the ability of Aizen-sama. Therefore, Ulquiorra was a little stunned, not knowing what Chin-Yang meant. Don't believe it. Chin-Yang glanced at him, sat in front of the big screen, and pressed the communication switch. Of course you don't believe me. Although I'm not Aizen, I'm indeed Aizen. Drip. The sound of the communication link sounded, and then the big screen flashed and lit up. The next moment, a voice came from the loudspeaker. What's the matter, Ulquiorra? This voice was clearly Aizen. However, it was not what Chin-Yang said. What? Ulquiorra's eyes widened, and he murmured incredulously, Lord Aizen. Huh. The other end of the communicator, Aizen's low voice came, it seems that your mental state is not good. I'm asking you, if you contact me at this time, do you have anything to report? Between the virtual circle and the soul world, but the world is far away, this kind of connection can easily be spied on by the Technology Development Bureau of the 13th Team of the Guardian. Therefore, it is not necessary, or fully prepared, Aizen will not contact the virtual circle at will. However, the virtual circle took the initiative to contact him, which is very rare. Hearing Ching Aizen's voice again, Ulquiorra was completely shocked. In the end, what's going on? To Aizen-sama. He looked at Chin-Yang in front of him. The spiritual pressure was exactly the same. There was no possibility of mistakes. It was like human DNA, and there could be no fallacies. He was speechless behind him, and Aizen on the other end of the communicator was obviously a little dissatisfied. At this moment, Chin-Yang's voice sounded. He. After a series of laughter, Chin-Yang opened his mouth slowly and said, Good evening, Captain Aizen. Huh. Hearing this familiar voice suddenly, far away in the soul realm, Aizen, who had just slaughtered the central 46th room, couldn't help but look startled. You are not Ulquiorra, who are you? Can you contact me with the communicator of the Void Knight Palace? He felt that things were very unusual, that something unexpected happened. Who am I? This question is like asking, who are you? Chin-Yang said with a playful expression. Listen, Captain Aizen. I'm Aizen Huyusuk. This is not a password. I'm just like you. I'm you, but you're not me. Hearing this, the other end of the communicator fell silent. Aizen stood at the massacre scene in room 46 in the center, speechless for a long time. Leaning against the silver on the door frame, Vivi frowned and said, What's the matter, Captain Aizen? Silver, I am you, but you are not me. What does that mean? Aizen sighed softly. There is an unplanned character. Besides, I have a hunch that it is a very troublesome character. He doesn't know what's going on in Xi Palace now, but considering that the other party can use the communicator to contact him, then, it is very likely that the Void Knight Palace has fallen. No matter who the opponent is, whether it is done by force, or cleverly acquired, it is an absolutely troublesome role. The most important thing is that the other party knows him very well. At this moment, Qin Yang's voice sounded again in the communicator. Captain Eisen, don't say a word, are you thinking about how to deal with this situation? Ha ha ha, let me guess, you must be thinking now, am I suppressing Xi Palace by force, or sneaking in to use it? Did the communicator contact you? Qin Yang jokingly said, it's a pity, it's all wrong. I walked in swaggeringly. As I said, I'm you, but you're not me. What's your purpose? After a little silence, Eisen couldn't help asking. It's nothing, just say hello to you, and tell you by the way, Xi Palace, it's mine for the time being. Qin Yang's laughter stopped, and he said in a flat tone, then, I look forward to seeing you someday. Puff. Communication is cut off. Qin Yang leaned back on the swivel chair, turned his head slowly, and looked at Ulquiorra, who was bewildered. You are you Eisen-sama? Ulquiorra, yes or no, it's all in your mind. The old god Qin Yang said on the ground, or do you think that I am not, can you resist me? As soon as the voice fell, in an instant, a huge spiritual pressure appeared all over Qin Yang's body, and even this spiritual pressure was directly visible to the naked eye. It was an azure light that enveloped Qin Yang's body. Being hit by Reiatsu at such a close distance, Ulquiorra only felt his shoulders sink, and he knelt down involuntarily. Reiatsu of this intensity, you are indeed Eisen-sama. In the midst of this spiritual pressure, Ulquiorra only felt that heaven and earth seemed to suppress him, giving birth to a sense of powerlessness. Qin Yang got up and walked towards the other side. He said quietly, Ulquiorra, the god of death or the void, the so-called battle is the battle of Reiatsu. When the level gap of Reiatsu is too large, all abilities are useless. Meaning, keep that in mind. Yes, Eisen-sama. The Reiatsu disappeared, and Ulquiorra lightened, but did not get up, but nodded respectfully. Chapter 0435 _ Another Mysterious Power. Soul World, Xiao Ling Ting, the highest judicial organ, the 46th room in the center. This is a collective council composed of nobles and elders, similar to the British House of Lords, composed of a total of 40 sages and 6 judges. The decision issued here, even the commander-in-chief of the 13th Squadron of the Searinge Guardian, could not raise any objection, and it was an absolute authority. But now, in the big conference room, all the sages and judges have died. The wound of death is very simple, one hit will kill, and there is no time to react. Standing in the center of the large conference room, Eisen looked calm, as if he had done a trivial thing. He slapped the sword and threw away the blood on the blade. While returning the zanpakuto to its sheath, he walked up the steps and walked out of the conference room. The situation was unexpected, the Xi Palace fell, and the plan had to be postponed. Eisen said with a smile, the other party calls himself, Eisen Sosuke. Judging from the previous contact, Ulquiorra should be on the side. Captain Eisen, this is really a terrible thing. Ichimaru Jin said without revealing a smile, but you're happy instead. The plan will work, Silver. Eisen said earnestly, as long as we proceed according to the plan, everything will develop as I expected. Isn't it interesting that there is someone who is not in the plan now? Besides, the other party knows me well, so they will take the initiative to contact me. Otherwise, he can do whatever he wants in the Void Knight Palace, but we can't get any news in the Soul realm. If Qin Yang doesn't take the initiative to contact this side, Eisen believes that, at least in the short term, it will be difficult for him to discover the changes in the Xi Palace. But the other party did so, which can only explain 2 points. First, the opponent is very confident in his own strength, even to the point of being unscrupulous. Second, the other party knew him very well. This situation, for others, may be a great trouble. But Eisen was the opposite. While he was surprised, he couldn't help but feel a little happy. In short, in the name of the Central 46th Room, I will ask you to bring a few team members to form an expeditionary force and go to the virtual circle to investigate the truth. If necessary, those team members can be killed when they return. Eisen Vivi said with a smile, Silver, your task is very heavy. This time, the opponent is probably beyond imagination, and the origin of the mysterious monster. Eisen also thought it was a little subtle to call self a monster. But since the other party can easily suppress Xi Palace, it is indeed powerful to another dimension. In fact, he wanted to go to the virtual circle in person, but the timing was not good this time. He had just killed the people in the 46th room, and he had to stay in the soul world, unfold the mirror, and maintain the illusion that the 46th room still existed and issued orders as usual. Okay, Captain Eisen. Isho, the corner of Ichimaru Jin's mouth, agreed without any hesitation. He is also very curious about the situation of Xi Palace, and is naturally willing to go and see. On the other side, the virtual circle, the virtual night palace. This world is always night, but in the palace of virtual night, there is an artificial sky, which is day. Beneath the artificial sky, on a white sand school field in this labyrinth-like building, hundreds of giants were gathered, like chasing ducks. Before, he ordered 10 blades to capture Dashu, and now it is the result. However, it did take a long time, mainly because catching them alive was far more difficult than killing them. The 500 heads are all emptiness, all of which are Killian. After the emptiness evolves from ordinary emptiness to great emptiness, there will be 3 levels. They are Killian, Achukas, and Vasto, and the most common one is Killian. Most of Kirian's appearances are similar, tens of hundreds of meters in height, black outer body, like wearing a cloak, at the same time above the mask, is a long white nose, IQ is extremely low, compared to the last 2 levels of Daxu, is the level of cannon fodder and trash fish. At this moment, the 500 giants gathered in the desert school grounds were restless and kept roaring. Lord Eisen, Hannibal said respectfully, the mission has been completed. You are doing well. Qin Yang, Vivi Isho, walked towards the Daxachun, while pressing his right hand on his chest. After the blue light flashed, a flashing fluorescent gem appeared. Bang Yu, the 60th blade Grimjow stared at this magical gem. He used the power of Bengyu to complete the face-breaking transformation, and he is no stranger to Bengyu. However, this piece of collapsed jade seems to be more powerful than the original piece. What does he want to do? Grimjow secretly said in his heart, do you want to turn all the 500 dwarves into a face? HMPH, boring, a face of the Killian level, there is not much combat power at all. In the past, there were many broken faces transformed from Killian, and some of them were the former 10 blades, but with the maturity of the broken face technology and the emergence of Achuka's level broken faces, these former 10 blades were all eliminated. The 6 people, including Ulquiorra, stared at Qin Yang, wondering what the other party was going to do. When he came to a stop in front of the big virtual group, Qin Yang held the collapsing jade and merged his will into it. And at this moment, the one closest to Qin Yang, Daxu, suddenly let out a false roar, opened his mouth, and the dark red spiritual pressure gathered in his mouth. The next moment, a flash of light suddenly came over. Be quiet. Qin Yang slapped his left hand, like hitting a fly, and directly hit the phantom flash elsewhere. Boom. This big virtual flash, like turning a right angle of 90 degrees, slammed to one side, and finally hit the desert, causing the sky to be filled with yellow sand. Even if his intelligence is low, this Daxu was too frightened to move. Purge it. Qin Yang's spiritual pressure shrouded this Daxu, suppressing the opponent, and at the same time, the power of Bengyu began to radiate. The next moment, this big virtual body began to slowly disintegrate like an hourglass. Starting from its head, it turned into a little dust and poured into the collapsing jade. And with the disappearance of this big void, the brilliance emanating from Benyu became more and more prosperous, until it reached its peak at a certain moment. In the dazzling brilliance, the mysterious power contained in a big void finally turned into a drop of crystal clear liquid, floating 4.7 in the collapsing jade. Very good. Chinyang nodded and said to himself, sure enough. This kind of power is very pure. However, Aizen and Urahara Kazuki's Benyu can't do such a thing, they must be mature. Collapsing jade. Next, Chinyang, regardless of the dull gazes of the 610 blades behind him, purifies hundreds of big emptiness in one breath. In the end, the 100 drops of liquid that appeared in the collapsing jade gradually condensed and turned into a momentary orb. Orbs similar to collapsing jade are crystal clear and extremely pure. Another Benyu. Beilagang opened his mouth wide and looked at Chinyang in disbelief. Is this how Benyu was made? Hearing this, Chinyang chuckled and said, this is not a collapsing jade, let's give it a name, just call it, Wanyu. A magic jade is a mysterious power. Chapter 0435-9 Tales Invasion of Soul Society 1. Phantom Jade, the crystal condensed after the purification of 100 great virtuals. One is equivalent to the mysterious power of a devil fruit. And this purification does not refer to killing Daxu, but to wash away the sins of the other party, so that he can become a Buddha, that is, become an ordinary soul, and ascend into the corpse soul world. Purification, function of the Zanpakuto of the Shinigami, it does not kill the soul. The source of this mysterious power is much faster than absorbing Zanpakuto. Chinyang nodded with satisfaction, and immediately continued to purify this group of big emptiness. One purification only takes 10 seconds, and as Chinyang's proficiency improves, he can purify multiple targets at the same time. In less than an hour, a total of more than 500 giants have been completely purified. However, purification is not 100% successful. About every 10 times, there will be 1 or 2 failures. Chinyang is convinced that this is not his own operation problem, and as for the specific reason, he cannot judge for the time being. All in all, to condense a magic jade, theoretically only 15 need 100 big virtual heads, but in fact, it needs about 120 heads. When all the big voids were purified, Chinyang let Vivi breathe a sigh of relief, and he looked down at the magic jade in his hand. Fourth, the fifth is not yet formed, but it's almost too soon. There are so many great voids in the Great Void Forest, if they are all purified, at least hundreds of illusion jades can be obtained. Chinyang secretly thought, of course, this kind of thing is repetitive work, and it takes a lot of time. It can only be done slowly, and it is impossible to complete it at one time. Thinking of this, he immediately turned around and said to the 6 dumbfounded Shirin, this time you have done a good job. From now on, each of you will hand in 100 dwarfs every week. Ah! Stark opened his mouth and couldn't help scratching his head. Lord Aizen, you made this kind of collapsing jade? No, what's the use of this kind of magic jade? He has a lazy personality, and he is a little reluctant to go to the forest of Daxu to arrest Daxu every week, because he is afraid of trouble. Beilagang was very concerned about Wanyu, and his eyes flickered at this moment, as if he had other thoughts. As for Halibal, the female 10 blades didn't think so much. Since Aizen told her, she would do it. Ulquiorra remained silent, still thinking about the 2 Aizen questions. As for the 5th and 6th, one is not very interested, and the other also cares about the magic jade. Taking a panoramic view of the expressions of the 6 people, Chinyang gently issued and said, Wanyu, this thing is very useful. For example, your broken-faced state is very unstable. If you absorb it, your strength can be further improved. This is true. Magic jade is an incomparably pure power. Except for death, which cannot be absorbed, broken faces and masks can be absorbed. In the future, I can reward whoever makes a contribution to him with a magic jade. When I came to the virtual circle this time, Ulquiorra's performance was the best, and this one will be rewarded to you. Saying that, Chinyang threw a magic jade at Ulquiorra. This one is a semi-finished product, which is of no use to Qin Yang. If he wants to absorb it, it must be a finished product. Since it is useless, it will be regarded as a reward and given to subordinates. Virtual. For me. Ulquiorra was stunned, looked at the magic jade in the palm of his hand, and was silent for a while. He didn't know if this was the hush fee, but considering Qin Yang's strength, the hush fee was meaningless. So, what's the point of giving him one at this time? In his opinion, Aizen-sama in front of him is also unfathomable, and every step must have a deep meaning in it, but unfortunately he will not be able to see through it for a while. However, the other 5 were completely unaware of his thoughts, and they looked at the magic jade with a bit of envy. The broken face is unstable, and the 10 blades present are like this. Since the magic jade has such an effect, of course they need it very much. Then let's disband. Qin Yang said calmly. In the near future, the Soul Society will send an expeditionary force into the virtual circle. If you find relevant information, report it to me as soon as possible. After speaking, he moved and immediately disappeared in front of everyone. As for the expeditionary force, that's speculation. Since Aizen knew that the Zai Palace had fallen, he would definitely look at the situation. In order to hide from the rest of the 13th team of the Guardian, the expedition army was the best choice. Yes, Aizen-sama. Qin Yang returned to his palace and continued to study the magic jade. Magic jade, a strange and mysterious form of power, must have other effects besides absorbing it. I don't know what the new transformation opened with the magic jade will be like. It's a pity that it's a forced transformation period. Qin Yang sat in front of the stone table, playing with the 4 magic jades. However, before that, let's study the black accent first, so as to facilitate travel between the 2 realms in the future. Next, Qin Yang put away the magic jade and set off for the reference room. Aizen has been operating Zai Palace for so many years, and all kinds of research materials are very complete. Qin Yang can easily find the information related to Haicheng. After a night of groping, he roughly grasped the way to open it. Then after several experiments, the black cavity was finally successfully opened. This is also thanks to the fact that the fantasy body Aizen and the god of death Aizen have the same spiritual power. It is absolutely impossible for another person to be so easy. At this moment, Qin Yang looked at a large pitch-black hole in the data room, after the space was torn apart, and differentiated into an illusory body with a chuckle. With a flash of white light, the 9-tailed demon fox suddenly appeared. The human form of the 9-tailed demon fox, with blonde fox eyes and a handsome appearance. Without any hesitation, he stepped into the black cavity. After entering the Haicheng, where the 9-tailed demon fox goes, it is the broken world. The so-called broken boundary refers to a space surrounded by several layers of cut-off spaces, which are surrounded by the torrent of time 213. This space is very dangerous for most spirits. The 9-tailed demon fox did not delay, and continued to move forward along the passage. After a full quarter of an hour, his eyes finally lit up and rushed out of the boundary. The surrounding scenery changed. After leaving the boundary, what the 9-tailed demon fox saw was a blue sky and a huge palace-style building. That's Xiao Ling Te. The 9-tailed demon fox's eyes flashed, and he said to himself, the black voice developed by Aizen really leads to the soul realm. His body began to fall, and it fell towards the bottom, and the direction of the fall was Xiaoringte. Just when he was considering whether to dodge or not, a large number of spiritual suns from the corpse soul world began to pour into the body from all directions. The 9-tailed demon fox was startled, only to feel that his whole body was surging, and he was a little out of control. I am a pure energy body, and the soul world is a world where spirit bodies live. So, have the 2 energies started to conflict? It's not good. As soon as the voice fell, the 9-tailed demon fox let out a long roar. Immediately afterwards, above the sky, electric lights flickered, and several lightning bolts from the sky suddenly hit the body of the 9-tailed demon fox. Can't hold back. The 9-tailed demon fox flashed fiercely, and the next moment, the whole person immediately began to swell, and in an instant, it turned into a nine-tailed fox with a body of 100 meters. And at the moment he appeared, the alarm sounded one after another in the spiritual court. Intruder. Chapter 0436-9 Tales Invasion of Soul Society 2. Intruder. 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 In Saranje, the first-level battle alarm sounded from all corners, and all the squadrons of the Gote 13th Squad were violently agitated. Many people looked up at the sky, and they could clearly see a huge nine-tailed demon fox descending from the sky. What is this? Void. No, there's no void. Nine-tailed fox. Quickly notify Captain Zaraki. Many gods of death in Death Tyrant costumes couldn't help but murmured in a low voice. Above the sky, after the nine-tailed demon fox fell, it quickly hit a layer of transparent spherical shield. Killer stone, that can block the flow of spiritual power, from the sky to the ground, wrapping the entire Saranje. Ordinary spirits want to invade, this is the first barrier. However, the nine-tailed demon fox is not a spiritual body, and the shield formed by the murderous stone is useless to him. At the moment of the impact, the nine-tailed demon fox easily broke through this defense and completely entered the interior of Saranje. Boom! With a loud bang, the huge body of the nine-tailed demon fox appeared directly on the street in Saranje, and when he stepped on it, it crushed several buildings. The 7 or 8 gods of death who happened to be here all widened their eyes and looked up at this huge demon fox in disbelief. Monster! It destroyed the murderous stone shield in an instant. A god of death swallowed his saliva, and without hesitation, immediately began to sing the ghost way. The King's Lander, the mask of flesh and blood, the omnipresent, the thing that flutters high, and bears the name of human beings. Scorching heat and strife, rolling back south across the sea, and marching forward. During the long chant, crimson-red spiritual power began to appear in the palm of the death god's hand. After converging, it turned into a spherical cannonball and suddenly shot towards the nine-tailed demon fox. The 31. Red Cannon. With a bang, the red artillery hit the right paw of the nine-tailed demon fox, causing a burst of smoke. What's the use of such low-level ghosts? Lighting the festival. Nine-tailed demon fox dismissed it. It's a little bit of a miscalculation. I didn't expect that I would conflict with the spiritual power of the soul world. However, it doesn't matter, since I was forced to show up, I'll play with you for a while, as a greeting. The name of the dream is known to everyone in the world of pirates, and it is of course also famous in the world of death. I'm a fantasy cadre, the nine-tailed demon fox. During the shouting, the nine-tailed demon fox opened its mouth, and evil forces gathered in its mouth, which quickly condensed into a dark, chaotic energy ball. Tailed Beast Cannon. Whoosh! A tailed beast cannon shot, leapt 110 meters away, and landed on a row of shelters. The next moment, a big explosion. The manic and evil force swept away in an instant, and the formed hurricane instantly raised everything within a radius of several hundred meters to the ground. Quick, inform the captain. This is not a monster we can handle. The god of death was beaten by the strong wind before, and the whole person was directly hit against the wall, suffering heavy injuries. At the same time as the nine-tailed demon fox was making a fuss, a captain's meeting was being held in the headquarters of the 13th team of the Gote, in a classical Japanese-style building. 11 gods of death dressed in white feather knitting stood in 2 rows, quietly listening to the commander-in-chief's words. The commander-in-chief, the captain of the 13th team of the Guardian, is a majestic, bald old man with a long beard. It is known as the strongest god of death in the soul world, and even Aizen has to avoid his sharp-edged role. At the same time, he is also the founder of the Gote 13 team, Yamamoto Yuanyujai Shigekuni. Boom! The crutches hit the ground heavily, making a dull sound, making the atmosphere in the conference room even more dignified. What a gaffe! Yamamoto Yuanyujai spoke in a deep voice and said, early in the morning, before the captain's meeting started, there was a travel disaster. When the alarm was issued, the outer defenses had been broken. The captain of the team's intelligence unit, without any warning before, is really lax. The person who was criticized was dressed in flower feather weaving and wearing a hat. He was an uncle. His name was Jingle Chunchui, a veteran captain. At this moment, he had a depressed expression on his face. This is a sudden situation, it happened without any warning, and he has no ability to predict, how could he know in advance? Old man, thinking of this, Jingle Chunchui couldn't help but want to justify himself. Shut up, Yamamoto Yuanyujai snorted coldly and said, I'm lazy, I don't have the image of a captain, you are the primary responsibility for this gaffe. Hearing this, before Jingle Chunchui could speak, Aizen, the captain of the 5th Division, helped. Captain, no one expected this incident, so there is no need to be too harsh on the captain of the 8th Division. Hearing this, Yamamoto Yuanyujai glanced at him, and immediately went down the steps. At this moment, a man with long snow-white hair coughed and opened his mouth. Listen to the report of the subordinates. Travel disaster. The intruder is a 9-tailed fox with a body of about 100 meters, and it destroyed the murderous stone shield in an instant. Now it is near the 11th team's quarters. As soon as these words came out, the rest of the captains present were stunned. A white-haired boy who looked like a teenager immediately frowned and said, Come back, Captain Zaraki was there just now, but he's gone now. Kenpachi, a Yamato Nadeshiko-like woman, shook her head and said, the moment he heard the alarm, he rushed out, and he should have fought against the misfortune now. What? The captain of the 12th Division, a man wearing a strange mask, cut, don't kill it, this 9-tailed demon fox is a great experimental material. Several people have their own opinions, and there is no nervousness at all. In their view, it is just a strange demon fox, and there is only one person, so it is nothing to worry about. Boom. The rattling of the crutches sounded again, and Yamamoto Yuanyujai reprimanded, too lax. No matter what the intruder is, as the captain of the Gote 13 team, you must minimize the damage. You, who is going? I'll go. Aizen hesitated for a while, then immediately took a step and said, I'm a support unit, I should be able to help a little. At the same time, near the 11th team building, the invasion point. Qinyang was controlling the 9-tailed demon fox, destroying it at will, and suddenly at a certain moment, he stopped the movement in his hand. Is there a captain at last? As soon as the voice fell, in the distance of the ruins, at the top of a building, a brutish man sat with his chest folded. You can find me so far. Zaragi Kenpachi grinned, hey, you seem to be very strong. From such a long distance, his voice was clearly conveyed. He. Qinyang couldn't help but chuckle twice. God of death, don't sit still and watch the sky. As soon as the voice fell, suddenly, the huge body of the 9-tailed demon fox rushed towards the other party. Passing all the way, like a strong wind passing through, pushes down everything that is blocking it. Demon fox god fire. Puff. Blazing white flames instantly enveloped the entire body. Chapter-437-Shikigami. Demon Fox God Fire. The 9-tailed demon fox sprinted away, the gas burning white flames all over its body. Although it is called divine fire, it does not have the characteristics of spreading flames. It is a flame that burns the soul, and its effect on the spiritual body is naturally stronger. After getting close to Zengi Kenpachi, he raised his paw and slapped it hard. Seeing this, Kenpachi Zengaki, who was sitting cross-legged at the top of the building, grinned. I hope your strength matches the appearance of a beast, and you have the power of a beast. Come on, fight to your heart's content. Let's go. With a loud shout, he pulled his chest with both hands, revealing his muscular chest and abdomen. Too arrogant, Reaper. 9-tailed demon fox, haha Isho, patted it mercilessly. Boom. The claws of the burning white divine fire, together with the house where Kenpachi Zaraki sat down, smashed one of his claws into pieces. The 9-tailed demon fox pressed Zengi Kenpachi to the ground, and the demonic fox fire between its claws quickly burned the spirit body of Zengi Kenpachi, and the evil power invaded the opponent's will. 9 Masters, my flame is especially effective for the soul, how does it taste? Zaraki Kenpachi felt that he was naked, burned by a very cold flame, his will was suffering, and he would go crazy at any time. However, in this case, he laughed out loud. Ha 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 ha, I haven't felt this feeling for a long time. The sense of urgency, pressure, the soul is threatened, the body begins to tremble. It's amazing. You are really strong. As he said that, he turned his wrist and the sword light flashed. In an instant, the Zanpakuto cut off the 9-tailed demon fox's claws, as if to sever it with a single blow. The 9-tailed demon fox was too lazy to dodge, and let the blow come out. Whoosh! Zaraki Kenpachi broke free with brute force, quickly retreated, opened the distance, and frowned at the claws of the 9-tailed demon fox. The right claw that was pressing him was safe and sound, as if Zanpakuto could not harm it. He hesitated a little. He, the 9-tailed demon fox chuckled twice. Ignorance of the god of death, Juya, I am a pure energy body. With your sword, you can't hurt me. It's not that it can't hurt at all. If it hits a few vital points and one core, it can cause some damage, but if the claws are cut off, they can be restored in an instant. It seems so. Zakagi Kenpachi grinned. It's only interesting like this. As he said that, he ran quickly, and with one step, he could cross a distance of dozens of meters in an instant, detour behind the 9-tailed demon fox, and aim at one of the tails and swing the blade down. Seeing this, the 9-tailed demon fox swayed its 9 tails, and one of them rushed to meet it, while the other 2 attacked from both sides. I don't think you have a rough appearance, but your imagination is very rich. Do you think your tail is your weakness? 9-tailed fox haha Isho, naive. Zaraki Kenpachi was pierced through his mind, but he didn't give up. He saw a tail coming from the front and immediately slashed with a blade. Golden yellow one-color sword pressure, shot from the air, directly slashed and landed on one of the 9 tails. However, at this moment, another tail swept across, and with a snap, it was directly swept away. Boom boom boom. He was like a snowball, rolling over and over, hitting several streets all the way, and finally the whole person was photographed in a team building. If you want to fight me, at least take out your Benkai and hold a half Shikai Zanpakuto. Wouldn't you look down on Juya too much? The 9-tailed demon fox pouted, dismissing it. Zengmu Jonpachi is the captain of the 11th Division, and the 11th Division has always been a dedicated team for combat. The captain is a battle madman, and his strength is one of the best among many captains. It's a pity that this generation's Kenpachi, or rather, this generation's captain, let alone Benkai, can't even know Shikai. No, it's not that it won't, but for some reason, it's self-sealed. Anyway, the current Kenpachi can't take out Benkai and Shikai, so the 9-tailed demon fox lacks interest. Suddenly, the eyes of the 9-tailed demon fox flickered, and their eyes swept to the center of Seo Lingting. In that direction, a familiar aura was approaching. Aizen, he's here. The 9-tailed demon fox said inwardly. That's right, I came through the world through the black voice he studied, of course he would care. Thinking of this, the 9-tailed demon fox immediately decided to fight quickly, just right, test the ability of the new phantom body. Boom. Just as he was thinking, Zaraki Kenpachi had already rushed out of the ruins, with a crazy smile on his face, enjoying this kind of battle very much. He approached quickly, trying to slash Kyuubi's eyes. Fool! 9-tails snorted lightly, and immediately slapped it with a paw, shouting at the same time, summon Abe Seimei. The next moment, Zaraki Kenpachi saw Juwei's claws hit, and he swung back with his knife, but it was like a man's arm as a chariot, and he was shot again and again. But before he could get up, in front of him, a white light flickered, and a man wearing a black high hat and snow-white hunting clothes slowly appeared. Humans! Zakagi Kenpachi was taken aback and a little confused. It is completely incomprehensible why this ferocious fox can summon a human. Death, it was an ordinary soul body at first, and gradually gained the power of death through training. I'm sorry, Captain of the 11th Division, I will use you as an experiment." A soft whisper, Abe Seimei stretched out his right palm and pressed it towards Kenpachi in the air. Shikigami restraint. A mantra sounded. Zergi Janba's complexion changed, his body, limbs, and face, as well, were covered with countless special talisman phantoms. These peculiar shadows of talismans are like a binding force, imprisoning his soul. Not only that, but at the same time he was imprisoned, he forcibly invaded his will, detained, and enslaved his consciousness. Asshole! Zaraki Kenpachi roared angrily, and with the enslavement and restraint power of the resistor, he raised his blade and slashed at Abe Seimei. However, this sword cut off, and before it touched Abe Seimei, an invisible barrier appeared around him. With a bang, the blade stood above the barrier. Damn! After struggling for a while, Zengi Kenpachi's expression gradually calmed down, his head lowered, and his right hand holding the knife also dropped quickly. And at this moment, not far away, Aizen arrived late with the members of his 5th Division. He saw Kenpachi Zaraki at a glance, and he saw Abe Seimei beside Kenpachi, as well as the huge fox. On Myoji, Lan Ran was stunned. Isn't the travel disaster alone what's going on? Captain of the 11th Division. He was a little puzzled, and it was an unexpected situation again. Hearing this, Abe Seimei looked away, his thoughts moved, and he said softly, "Kill him." Roar! Zaraki Kenpachi roared angrily, and then rushed towards Aizen. What? Iran's face froze, and she said in shock, "I was manipulated." Manipulate, to be precise, slavery. However, if the enslavement failed, it could only be controlled reluctantly. In 5 minutes at most, Zengi Kenpachi could break free. Abe Seimei secretly thought in his heart, sure enough, the captain level is not easy to restrain. Just like a small cage with a lion locked, the cage can be easily broken. Shikigami restraint. This ability is effective for the god of death, but unfortunately the star rating is too low. If it is used on the main body, it should be very easy. Chapter 0438-Monster Organization. It turned out to be an Onmyoji. Aizen stared blankly at Abe Seimei, and suddenly felt a sense of time and space. Onmyoji, of course, he knows that the occupation that once existed in Japan in this world, in that chaotic era, the Onmyoji do indeed exist, and Onmyoji is also a strange human being with inspiration. But to say that Onmyoji can enslave the god of death, it is simply a fantasy. Moreover, at present, the Onmyoji of this world has long since declined. Thinking like this, he saw that Zaragi Kenpachi was attacking here like a mad dog. Seeing this, a delicate girl behind Aizen immediately shouted anxiously, "Captain Zaragi! Wake up! Get back, Hinamori! Captain level Reiatsu, even if you're a vice captain, can't be resisted, leave it to me here." Aizen put the girl behind him with great concern, and at the same time flicked 2 fingers of his right hand, the 61 binding Dao, 6 stand light prison. Whoosh! The spiritual pressure manifested, condensed into 6 pieces of light, attacked from 6 directions, and imprisoned Zengmu Janpachi in an instant. Too despicable. Onmyoji actually controls Captain Zaraki, Aizen said solemnly. He. Abe Seimei couldn't help but chuckle twice. Stop laughing, Captain Aizen. Compared to despicableness, I'll be compared to you, but the White Lotus is as pure as a white lotus. Hearing this, Aizen's eyes flashed a strange color, but her face was very calm. Who are you? Why did you invade Saranje? I wait as a dream. Abe Seimei didn't hide it, and declared his name generously. As for why I invaded, I said that I entered here by mistake, and you probably won't believe it. Dream. Lan Ran's thoughts turned around, thinking about the origin of this organization in his mind. Rao is that he is familiar with ancient and modern, and has read a lot of books. He can't figure it out for a while. What is that 9-tailed demon fox? Pay attention to your words, Aizen. The 9-tailed demon fox snorted coldly and said, Juya, I am a Kadri. The big monster, the 9-tailed demon fox. In front of Tamamo, Aizen said subconsciously. Don't compare this kind of woman with Juya. The nine-tailed demon fox dismissed it. In front of the nine-tailed fox Yuzhao, it definitely does not exist in this world, but this does not prevent Qinyang from creating the illusion that this monster exists. When Aizen heard these words, she obviously felt a little weird. Forget about Onmyoji. After all, there was a period of time in history, but the appearance of monsters simply subverted his worldview. This is a completely different power system from void and death, a mysterious existence. There are monsters hiding in this world. It's really curious. At this moment, not far away, a voice came. Abe Seimei looked sideways, and saw a man with light purple short hair, like a poppy, sitting quietly on the roof of the 11th team's team building in the distance. He was holding a short wagon in his hand, and seeing Abe Seimei at this moment, Isho immediately drew out the blade and whispered at the same time. Shoot him, sharpshooter. Whoosh. The sharp sword light flashed, and I saw the wakizashi in the man's hand, extending rapidly at a speed that surpassed his eyesight, straight to the heart of Abe's intelligence. Wait, Captain Ichimaru, Aizen shouted hurriedly. The origin of this group of misfortunes is unknown. Don't kill them, it is better to capture them alive and hand them over to Captain Yamamoto. There was a bit of anxiety on his face, and he seemed to have a headache over the situation. Of course, Qinyang, who is familiar with his nature, only regards it as watching a play. In the face of this flying sword, Abe Seimei was not in a hurry. He moved his finger, and immediately, Zanpakuto threw out the Zanpakuto in his hand, who was bound by the light of the 6 sticks. With a swoosh, the Zanpakuto hit the flying spear, collided with it, and changed its trajectory. In the end, this lightning strike passed through Abe Seimei's arm. Oh, it's really scary to actually control the captain-level death god. Ichimaru Jin smiled and hid the sword, but failed to succeed in one hit, and did not pursue it again, but said, You, a human dressed as an Onmyoji, someone should be very interested. As soon as the voice fell, a strange laughter sounded. I saw a strange man wearing a mask and wearing a white feather weave, walking from the street beside Ichimaru Jin. Don't shoot anyone, this human must be captured alive, this is much more interesting than the power of the Quincy. I need such an interesting experimental body. The masked man widened his eyes and slowly drew out the Zanpakuto that was tied in front of his waist. Hee, it's a bit rude to use it on a mere human. Open your claws. Bankai Golden Kill Jizo. Boom. A surge of spiritual pressure radiated from the masked captain's body. A huge spiritual pressure instantly enveloped this battlefield. The next moment, behind him, a strange columnar worm quickly appeared. This big bug has the head of a huge golden baby, huge gray eyeballs, a steel hollow circle similar to an angel's halo on its head, countless blades under its neck, and its feet are as numerous as centipedes. When he appeared behind the masked captain, the golden worm exhaled, and it was a purple poisonous mist. Bankai, Abe Seimei said with a calm expression. It's boring, among you death god captains, your Bankai is the most useless. You even took it out for shame. What did you say? The masked captain's face darkened, and his eyes flashed with anger. A mere human, how shameless. Eat it and kill Jizo. Hearing this, the big golden worm behind him immediately crawled up, passed over the masked captain's head, and charged towards Abe Seimei. Aiya, there are 4 captains here, and you can't escape. Ichimaru Jin was watching the play, his hands in his cuffs, and the old god said, Surrender, although I don't know what a dream is. Organization, but only 1 person and 1 fox dare to invade Saranje. Should I say you are daring or stupid? He. In the face of such a situation, Abe Seimei couldn't help but chuckle twice. Indeed, with the strength of me and the 9 tails, we are not the opponents of the 2 of you. However, who gave you the illusion of 5.8? There are only 2 people waiting for me. Summon the Master of the Sea. Roar. A dragon's roar resounded through the entire Searange. The next moment, the sky was covered with dark clouds, and a dark dragon suddenly descended. Its body was hundreds of meters, and suddenly it appeared in the air, showing its teeth and claws, and the dragon was majestic. Dragon. Aizen's eyes widened, and she said incredulously, "Is this also a fantasy monster?" Black dragon. Hina Sentao looked up blankly and murmured. "You don't need to shoot, just the aura emitted by the dark dragon can clearly feel that it is far more than the nine-tailed demon fox and the human on Myoji's aura." Death. The sea dragon seems to be the master, hovering high in the sky, looking down at the people below. "I am the master of the ocean, the sea dragon god. The god of death. If you want to talk nonsense in front of me, at least let Yamamoto Yuanyujai speak." Chapter 0439-Flooded Seirei Garden. The sky of Seiranje was covered with dark clouds, and the thick clouds seemed to collapse, giving people a heavy sense of oppression. The rain poured down, as if the sky was crying. The sea dragon floated in the air, looking down at the gods of death below. "If you want to talk nonsense in front of me, at least let Yamamoto Yuanyujai speak out. He said that Longwei is illustrious. The huge dragons might envelop the entire Seo Lingting. At this moment, no matter where you were in the Seo Lingting, you could clearly feel the constant pressure coming from the top of your head." Ocean Master. Aizen raised her head and stared at Heilong. Judging from what the nine-tailed demon fox had said before, there was clearly a class within the mysterious organization called Dream. "Heilong, what's your purpose in invading Seo Lingting?" After a moment of silence, Aizen said loudly. "The other party is obviously an organization. Since it is an organization, it must have a fundamental purpose." Hearing this, Heilong glanced at him and said, "Aizen, Benlong is not interested in talking to you. Instead of caring about my dreams, you should worry about yourself. Let Yamamoto Yuanyujai come out." Hearing these 15 words, Aizen's eyes were strange. This group of monsters knew Seirenge very well, which was understandable, but it seemed to be very clear to him. Aizen immediately thought of the fall of the Zai Palace. What is the connection between the mysterious person who suppressed the Zai Palace and the Dream Group? Not to mention his thoughts, Captain Mask was very angry. He was first ridiculed by Abe Seimei, and then ignored by Heilong. At this moment, he could no longer bear it. Really, first a fox, then an Onmyoji, and now a dragon. Your organization is full of strange characters. Captain Mask snorted coldly and said, "All become my experimental materials. Come on, kill Jizo." As soon as the voice fell, a cry like a baby sounded, and the big golden bug suddenly jumped into the sky and slaughtered towards the sea dragon. While flying, it spit purple poison at the mouth. "Stupid." Heilong looked down, raised his claws, and slammed it down. "Stay on the side, I'm too lazy to pay attention to you." Water jets. On the dragon's claws, a drop of water fell like raindrops. At the moment when it flew out, it swelled in an instant, grew long when it saw the wind, and in the blink of an eye, it turned into a huge water jet and fell from the sky. With one blow, the golden slaughter Jizo was cut in half. What? Instant Jin, all the gods of death suddenly changed color. Even Aizen couldn't help showing surprise. Bankai, the captain of the 12th Division, was broken, which was far beyond expectations. Damn it. Niyuri's teeth tickled with hatred, but he didn't rush up again. Bankai's Zanpakuto was smashed bastard. I won't slice you, it's hard to understand the hatred in my heart. U. and GT. Bankai's Zanpakuto was broken, and it was impossible to repair it by ordinary methods. However, Heilong was not interested in ignoring him. These people can be dealt with later. It is more important to force Yamamoto Yuanyujai first. It seems that you hold your own identity and don't want to appear. That dragon will flood the entire Searing Garden. The sea dragon uttered a loud dragon roar, and in an instant, the whole sky thundered, and the rumbling sound continued. Call the wind and call the rain. The rapid rain, at this moment, became more and more majestic. It was as if an ocean appeared above the sky, and at this moment, the ocean was dumping seawater. Ah! Hundreds of millions of tons of rainwater suddenly poured down, and everyone who was in the rain was beaten to the point of pain. This is the rain of the soul realm, and every drop contains spiritual power. When it hits the god of death, it is like a small stone falling from a height. He's going to drown Saranjay. Hurry, hurry up and inform the commander-in-chief. Who will stop this monster? In just a short while, the water on the ground had submerged his heels, and the water level quickly rose at a speed that the flesh could see. At this moment, a huge spiritual pressure suddenly came from the direction of the headquarters. This spiritual pressure, like the dragon power of the sea dragon, shrouded the entire searing garden in one fell swoop. Finally shot. As soon as the thought moved, Halong unfolded its own dragon power and suppressed it in that direction. At the same time, the other party's spiritual pressure also quickly rolled towards him. The two forces collided in the air, boom. In the dull loud noise, the rain in the whole world suddenly stopped, and the falling raindrops seemed to be banned. All the expressions of the god of death have already frozen. The screen freezes. And in this frozen picture, an old man with long beards is coming. "Have you had enough trouble?" he said in a low voice. Staring at Halong, with just one glance, it seems to encompass the world. Ha ha ha, as expected of the strongest god of death in 1,000 years. Sea Dragon ha ha isho. It has to be said that Yamamoto Yuanyujai's spiritual pressure is indeed huge, stronger than Wanshan Eisen, with several times the captain-level spiritual pressure, reaching the limit of the god of death. Of course, after the phantom body blue dying and collapsing jade, after breaking the boundary of death, can still surpass Yamamoto Yuanyujai. The self-proclaimed master of the ocean, with the power to call the wind and call the rain, Yu monster invaded the Lingling garden and caused huge damage. Today, the old man is going to kill the monster. What do you have to say? Yamamoto Yuanyujai hummed heavily, his breath locked on the sea dragon, making it difficult for him to escape. He. Halong couldn't help laughing. Benlong came here this time, not for anything else, just to bring you a word to the god of death. What? Yamamoto Yuanyujai frowned. Bring a word. This word is unusual, indicating that this sea dragon is doing things for others, not the leader of the dream organization. Benlong, on behalf of Lord Qin, announces to you. Halong said calmly, from now on, the corpse soul world belongs to your god of death, the virtual circle belongs to the virtual world, and the present world belongs to our dreams. The three worlds belong to each other, and they will not invade each other. Presumptuous. Yamamoto Yuanyujai reprimanded, saying, I don't know who Emperor Qin is, but you are too arrogant. Today, I will cut your head off. While speaking, his crutches slammed into the void, making a muffled sound. Everything in Vientiane is ashes, and the blades are like fire. Woohoo! The wooden layer on the outside of the cane was burnt away, and a long sword appeared. At the same time, the manic flame overflowed from the blade, and the temperature of the entire space was rapidly increasing. The huge amount of rain fell from the sky, and it did not reach the ground, but it had evaporated. He. Sea dragon haha isho, the whole dragon body began to emit golden light, want the head of this dragon. The frog at the bottom of the well. Just let you see, what kind of combat power is the master of my dreams. By the way, this dragon is among the masters, it's not the strongest, you should be lucky, this time Benlong is here. Swish. Golden light. The black dragon body of the sea dragon, starting from its tail, is plated with golden light little by little. This kind of short-lived life transition, almost in the blink of an eye, the sea dragon has turned into a golden dragon. Sea Dragon God. Chapter 0440-Sea Dragon God. Golden light. The body of the sea dragon seemed to be coated with a layer of golden light, starting from its tail, it quickly turned into a golden dragon of 100 feet. This is the 5-star power of the sea dragon, the Sea Dragon God. Under the guise of the power of heaven and earth, he obtained a temporary divine position. At this moment, the sea dragon's life essence jumped and reached a higher dimension. Just as the god of death can use the Benyu to break the boundary between the god of death and the virtual, and enter a higher dimension, the sea dragon can also use the god position to break through the 5-star limit of its own combat power. Roar. The sea dragon raised its head to the sky and uttered a loud dragon roar, and the sound of the dragon roar shook the ancients and the present. Only some captains can barely keep their composure. Captain Eisen, Hina Sentau covered her head and fell to the ground with a haggard face. In her senses, the heavens and the earth were shaking violently. The golden dragon above the sky seemed to be a world-destroying evil. It only existed here and suppressed all the gods of death below the captain level. It's all right, Hinamori. Eisen stretched out her hand and pressed it on Hina Sentau's head, and all the pressure from the outside world disappeared immediately. He stared at the sea dragon, and said in his heart, there should be more than one master of dreams, and he is not the strongest. This dragon has the fighting strength to fight head-on with Yamamoto Yuanlujai. Then the Qin Emperor, he said, was another. Who? It is hard to estimate. Yamamoto Yuanlujai is already the limit of death, but Heilong can confront head-to-head, and the Qin Emperor above it is afraid that it will be much stronger. Dream, what kind of mysterious organization is it? At this moment, not only Eisen, but the other squad leaders looked up at the impending battle. Songming. At this moment, Yamamoto Yuanlujai finally shot. The moment he drew his sword, he swung out a sharp blade of flame, and the flame wall was like a tornado, and he immediately rushed towards the sea dragon, trapping it in the flame tornado. And then, from behind Yamamoto Yuanlujai, a wall of burning fire appeared, and the wall spread, wrapping the space where one person and one dragon were at once. He. Wrapped in a double layer of flames, Heilong said calmly, as expected of the captain, in order to avoid the aftermath of the battle from destroying the Serange, he also blocked the dragon. However, do you think this flame is useful to the dragon? HMPH, it's useful or not, just try it out. With a cold snort, Yamamoto Yuanlujai waved the flowing blade Ruahuo in a circle, mobilized the surrounding flames, and dropped it with a single knife. All of a sudden, the double-layered flame wall that wrapped the sea dragon devoured him in unison. Dao, the little trick of carving insects. In the sea dragon god mode, the dragon can't invade in all ways. With a little flame, even the scales of the dragon can't be burned. Sea dragon god mode, under the guise of heaven and earth god, is the dragon god. The most obvious difference is that the color of the dragon's scales changes, and its defense power also increases several times. At this moment, the flames burned, and Heilong seemed to be unaware, as if dismissive. The flames formed by these high-concentration spiritual particles, once touched by ordinary spiritual power, are afraid that they will turn into ashes in an instant. But wanting to devour the sea dragon is far from enough. Once these flames touched the golden dragon's scales, they were immediately extinguished and wiped away. I am the dragon of the ocean, and I dare to shout in a mere flame. As soon as the voice fell, the dragon horn above the sea dragon's head radiated golden light, and the next moment, between heaven and earth, a huge amount of rain was mobilized. At the same time, in the streets, houses, and even the ground below, countless water currents surged, and 18 water columns suddenly rose to the sky. Each of these water columns is extremely thick, rushing out from the ground, climbing up to the sky, and finally converging on the top of Yamamoto Yuanlujai's head. The wrath of the dragon god. The sea dragon uttered a dragon roar, and the 18 water columns gathered in the sky immediately became violent. In the next second, the immeasurable water flow was compressed, forming a torrent that suddenly fell towards Yamamoto Yuanlujai. Hey, call the wind and call the rain, and control the flow of water. Yamamoto Yuanlujai's eyes turned cold, and he immediately raised his sword, burning hell. Boom! Below, under the rain-filled street, 10 pillars of fire suddenly appeared. This pillar of fire deliberately aimed at the water pillar of the sea dragon, and the moment it appeared, it immediately strangled towards all sides. Its high temperature is enough to burn a city, and it can even wipe out a city in an instant. The power of water and fire collided, dozens of times of confrontation, and in an instant, a big explosion occurred that swept the entire Saraiti. Boom boom boom. The steam filled the air and the spiritual pressure was raging. The two diametrically opposed forces that restrained each other were annihilated together after the fight. A thick fog appeared in Saranjay, covering the entire sky. The many captains, vice-captains, and gods of death below all looked horrified. This monster actually won't lose in the battle with the commander-in-chief. What a joke! Where did such a big monster come from in this world? No, it's going to explode. Run! As soon as the voice fell, a huge explosion was suddenly born in the water vapor that filled the sky. It was like a cloud bomb, evacuating the nearby air in an instant, and then the aftermath of the explosion was transmitted. The wind was raging, and the 13th Division's team building was razed to the ground within a second. Ha ha ha, the strongest Shinigami in the millennium is nothing more than that. Take out Bankai. Sea Dragon Haha Isho. The dragon swung its body, approached quickly, flew to the top of Yamamoto Yuanyujai's head, and slapped it with one paw. Of course he wouldn't give Bankai a chance, he just taunted and said it verbally. Really let Yamamoto Yuanyujai Bankai, Heilong is not very easy to deal with. Dragon's Claw. The golden light flickered, and the dragon god claws. In an instant, a golden claw phantom suddenly fell. Yamamoto Yuanyujai's complexion changed slightly, and he clearly felt that Sea Dragon was better at melee physical attacks, rather than manipulating water to defend against the enemy. At this moment, seeing the dragon claw flying over his head, he immediately broke out his spiritual pressure, and at the same time cut it with a knife, and launched a resistance. However, this time, the hasty counterattack was no match for the dragon god's claws. With a mind and no intention, this shocking claw directly shot down Yamamoto Yuanyujai. Boom! With a loud bang, Yamamoto Yuanyujai was smashed into the ground by the dragon's claw, cracking the ground. Chief Commander. Many gods of death shouted, full of shock. But Heilong didn't give him a chance to react, and immediately opened his fangs and roared. The Maelstrom. The turbulent water flow on the street quickly turned into a terrifying whirlpool, forming a huge water ball, which blocked the area where Yamamoto Yuanyujai fell. Blast. One word, and in an instant, the water polo exploded. Boom. With a deafening roar, the entire Saranjay ground trembled.